all for being here. I'm thanking everyone in Twitch chat who's stopped by, who's been followers now. Really appreciate that. And of course, thank you to my guests here. It's awfully kind of you all to join me. So yeah, I'm really happy to have you all here. Okay, we'll do introductions and jump right into it. At the top, we'll start with Pixie. Pixie, always happy to have you here. Thank you for stopping by once again, friend.
Hi, I'm Pixie. I like talking politics. I'm triple majoring because I hate my life. And thank you for having me here.
Yeah, we're always happy to have you around here. You add so much to our panels and so much knowledge and a really interesting perspective. So thank you for stopping by. Next is the homie Dylan Burns. Dylan, thank you for being here. Thank you for always being kind to this channel and joining us for this fine debate today. How are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing a-okay. I've just been doing a little bit of Belarus protest coverage, and just been mauling about that. So I'm happy to finally talk about something else besides Belarus, because that's been super depressing. But I'm sure American politics is not nearly as depressing, so that'll be great.
No, only blue skies here. All right, no worries. All right. LCTRfan is back with us. I'm actually quite happy to have him here again. I've enjoyed all my encounters with LCTRfan. He's a very interesting guy, a very passionate guy, and I'm happy that he's back with us once again. How are you doing today, LCTRfan?
Good, Prime Case. Thanks for inviting me back. It's good to be here. I'm a conservative, Trump supporter, Republican, American, Christian, not in that order. I do politics during the week, and then I do gaming on the weekends. Been playing a little Crusader Kings 3 lately. Love that game. Microsoft Flight Sim. Newly married, and I'm a commercial litigation attorney by day, and glad to be here. Thanks.
Oh yeah. And we'll mention that your nuptials in a second. Hey, Fanatic, thank you for coming back. Fanatic has joined us for a few of our panels. He was with our all black panel the other day, and he stopped by on Saturday too, and we had a discussion there. Fanatic, thank you for coming back. Thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it, buddy. Muted. All right. That's why I only invite pro streamers to the reverie.
Listen, you know me. I'm always gonna fail at least once. But anyway, thank you for having me, man. I super duper appreciate just talking with you and kind of hearing your perspective and engaging in these things. I typically do video games, I guess, like lightweight, but in reality, I'm a musician by trade, and that's what I do for a living. And then I kind of engage in, I guess, just civil conversations about various things. That's all I do.
Okay.
But music is my passion. That's who I am.
Okay. Fair enough. And of course, please put your links in chat so everyone can find those. Next, Harkdan. You and I have had no contact whatsoever. But I like your room. It looks really cool. You look like a handsome guy. Introduce yourself.
Thank you. Nice to meet you as well. I haven't been on Twitch for quite a while. I've been kind of taking a little bit of a break, doing my own thing. But yeah, I'm kind of a landlord rights activist. So I talk a lot about that and how tenant issues can impact you. So I focused a lot on that in the past. I'm also currently teaching at Princeton Plainsboro Hospital, where I have a double specialty of infectious disease and nephrology, but that doesn't really relate to this, obviously. So yeah, I mean, that's it. I'm excited to move forward. It'd be exciting.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. We thank you for joining us. All right. So next is Wake the Beast. He is the W over there on the side. That's actually, I hope he's not deafened. No, he's deafened. Wake the Beast. I have to send him a message. Wake. Let me send him a quick message, guys. Yeah.
He's probably plotting out his supervillain monologue, I expect. So.
Undeafen yourself. I spelled that wrong. UN deafen. All right, that whatever. All right. Next is Chudlogic. Chudlogic, my friend. Another person is actually been very kind to me, very kind to the stream, invited me on to his panels a few times, even though I was a small, know-nothing streamer. I will. Okay. I'm happy that you've joined us. I'm happy that you brought your voice, which is my favorite. As you know, I make that clear every time I see you. Yep. Thank you for being here, buddy.
No worries. Thanks for bringing me on. Hello to all the other panel guests. I'm Chudlogic. I'm ready for a shift at the meme circus. If you want to see memes and creams, come and check out my channel. Search Chudlogic on all good social media platforms. And I am a pro Britbonger activist. There's a lot of Britbonger hate out there, especially in the Twitch scene, and I'm looking to push back against that.
All right, great. Looking forward to that. And finally, last but certainly not least, hello, Destiny/Steven or whatever you'd like to be called. Thank you for joining us once again. Really appreciate it. You came to this panel previously to yell at someone else. It had nothing to do with me. I was just there. But you kind enough to join us here once again, this time on purpose. So baby steps, improvements here. Thank you for joining us, taking time out of your busy day.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm Destiny. I talk about politics, philosophy, and play video games on Twitch.
Oh, fair enough. Everyone else already knows who you are, so it's pointless. All right, gotcha. All right, so we here. Wake the Beast will be joining us a little later. So we'll just. And before we jump into our first topic, just want to again acknowledge LCTRfan and his new marriage. Right? Did you actually stream your marriage?
Yes, I live streamed the whole marriage ceremony. It was over 2 hours long, and even though the ceremony is about 15 minutes or 20 minutes, I streamed for a couple hours beforehand, and it was awesome. Highly recommend streaming weddings on Twitch.
All right. Well, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, a big part of your life. I'm not sure if there's any other significant streamer, at least on the Twitch politics side, has ever done anything like that.
I wonder if he banned anybody weird champed in chat. I'm really curious about that.
The whole world?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, it was, I was nervous about it, but it went as good as I could have hoped. And, it's awesome that she was down with it. So.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you for being here and congratulations on that.
Thank you.
I don't know why you're spending time here with me rather than your beautiful blushing bride, but whatever floats your boat. All right, so we're going to get started. Topic 1. All right, so topic 1: Destiny has been notified of a TOS violation, which may very well result in the loss of Twitch partnership. Twitch typically does not inform a person, a streamer, what exactly an infraction even is. In general, what do we think about the status and enforcement of Twitch TOS? How concerned are we as individual streamers and as a community of being unfairly or even inexplicably nuked? So this time, we usually don't do this, but this time I'll actually we'll let you do an introduction. So, all right, we'll start with Pixie. Pixie, what do you think about all this?
Okay, so generally speaking, when it comes to banning or I guess unpartnering or whatever a streamer, from the last times I've seen, the only other case I really know is about Jenna, is that there's usually no real warning behind it. I'm surprised that Twitch doesn't have a similar 3-strike system to YouTube that I'm aware of, that basically tells a person okay, this is how close you are to being unpartner, and these are the reasons why. So I think that just generally when it comes to unpartnering, that is a method that they should use, because otherwise people won't know exactly why they're unpartnered for, won't know their standing, and most importantly, won't know how to improve in the future if you just kind of take away their partnership without explaining exactly what happened or why. So those are my general thoughts and sentiments.
Okay. Dylan.
I mean, the thing that gets me the most is I cover a lot of foreign conflict and foreign policy stuff, which means a lot of times I'm using footage, which is battle footage. I'm very careful not to show live footage of people getting killed, but the idea that it could just happen like that, I could easily see somebody reporting me for just having a like a soldier firing at another soldier or something like that, and it's just kind of footage of what's going on, and maybe me getting banned for that. Or I'm showing protest footage in Belarus and a cop punches a protester, or something violent happens. What could happen to my stream? Definitely if blood appears on the stream for a brief period of time, which sometimes if I'm showing a live feed of something that's going on in Belarus, that can happen. It's risks that kind of come with it. Now, I understand the financial incentive they have behind not wanting that, but the thing that's most worrisome to me is the idea that I could get banned for that while I'm covering all these separate conflicts, and then just told violent content and not given the exact instant that did it. So then if I came back to the platform and still wanted to cover foreign policy conflict, I wouldn't really know what I would have to do different specifically to try to avoid that in the future.
Okay. LCTRfan.
Well, I always just feel so bad for these streamers that it happens to. I feel horrible for Destiny. I'm so sorry that it happened to him, and I feel bad for any streamer that gets or anybody that gets any kind of repercussions for things that they said that are not criminal in nature. I've been opposed to deplatforming and cancel culture for a very long time. I think if you're a streamer and you're not concerned about getting nuked, I guess, as the question stated, then I think you're uninformed, or you're not paying attention. It's obvious cancel culture, this left-wing cancel culture, the left-wing mob, the Antifa mindset is a major cultural problem in our country. The fact that Democrats and left-wingers don't even respect free thought, let alone free speech, is a huge concern. I think there's certainly things that you can say that.
I do want to throw it out there that the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, called for people who've burned flags to be put in jail. Just want to throw that out there.
Calling for or inciting violence. I don't think we've seen that anywhere. I certainly don't think what Destiny said qualifies as that. Obviously, you could disagree with it. You could say it's bad, et cetera, but I don't think it rises to the level of actual criminal incitement or anything like that. And so I think it's horrible that, Twitch is just unfairly going around deplatforming, departnering, breaking contracts, whatever it might be. I think it's horrible. I think this comes from obviously Twitch being a left-wing company, and I think it's horrible.
Okay then. Steven.
Okay, after that monologue, what was the question again? How do we feel about? Obviously, so to clarify, also it wasn't really a moderation action. It was just an email I got from legal. I don't know if any moderation action is actually going to get taken. It's starting to look like the answer to that is no. I just got an email from legal. I guess the things that disappoint me the most are that it feels like companies today are too quick to buckle. I said this about James Gunn. It feels like sometimes companies are too quick to buckle to email campaigns when realistically there's probably not going to be any economic harm done to the companies. I don't think that this is necessarily a left-wing versus right-wing thing. It's more just if people think they're going to lose money on something, they're very, very, very quick to act to head off public backlash. Now that tends to side with the left these days more than the right, because the left is more economically viable than the right. But I guess it's hard for me to say, obviously, because I'm pretty biased because it's involving me, but it's hard for me to believe that Twitch is going to lose a lot of business because I'm giving anti-rioter takes or extreme political takes on stream. That's hard for me to believe. Similarly to a lot of people in my community brought up statements that Hassan has said. It's hard for me to believe that somebody's going to hear something that Hassan said and they're going to cancel their subscription to another Twitch streamer over it. I don't really see the economic harm that Twitch is going to suffer as a result of any of it. So it seems kind of weird to bend over backwards so hard for a few people sending emails.
Well, you just contradicted yourself then, because you said that they do it for economic reasons, not political reasons.
So, yeah,
it's not your turn. What are you doing?
Yeah, we'll get to you. We'll get you, buddy. All right, Harkdan.
I've known Steve for a while, and I think it's bullshit. Actions that are taken on the platform are twofold. It's the severity of what you've done, and then it's the public pressure on it. And it's like a scale, if you will. You could have a very minor action, and if it's the entire planet is basically coming at you, then there's going to be a reaction, even if it's a very small thing. And on the likewise, if you do something pretty serious and there's not that much pushing of a support for something to happen, you could still have as a result. So I think in this case, we saw that there was a lot of activity of people, there was quite a campaign from a lot of people to get action here that I don't think would have otherwise. And it's very much like, Steven said there on that front, which is that, Twitch it's more economically sensible to cater to kind of left-wing things. And if you dare to go against the mold of, whatever the current left-wing thing is at this moment, then, you're going to have some serious reprisals or results. So I'm not in favor of it. I don't want to be on Twitch if it's nothing but like wholesome, wide people happy, nonsense. That shit's fucking bullshit to me. I hate that stuff. I want to see the real world. I want to have differing takes, and, suppressing that just because it goes against the grain sucks. So, yeah.
Okay. Chudlogic.
Okay, the fact that right-oid dipshits will try and paint this as Antifa cancel culture just shows the absolute brain rot that occurs when you're a conservative, okay? Now, in terms of Destiny, the reality is whether you agree or disagree, or whether you are happy or ecstatic or sad and upset about the departnering, isn't really going to come down to politics. It's going to be a personal thing. You either like Destiny and you're sad it's happened, or you don't like Destiny and you're happy it's happened, right? I think that part of it is like not the main issue here. The main issue is this is something that happens all the time. The system is inherently broken. The system is inherently flawed. And for me, it's about the fact that we are essentially gig workers, like Uber drivers, essentially. So for me, it's about like a workers' rights issue of ensuring that streamers have got, I don't know what the answer is specifically, but there's representation, or there's some sort of, unionization or something like that, so that we can push back against, the broken system effectively.
Okay. Finally, Fanatic. Mute it once again.
You're right, and it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen because I'm trying to make sure I'm managing both mutes because I'm typing a lot. I just try to keep track of everything. So, I feel like a lot of people are kind of reacting. It seems like people are talking about like maybe generalizing what's happening and not really responding to the specific situation. So, like, I guess I kind of agree with a lot of what everyone said so far. I think in general, cancel culture is absolutely cancer, in line with what LCTRfan said. And I think the idea of being like canceled for like accidental stuff, like if you're like broadcasting something and then something accidental happens, the idea that you could be banned for that when there's clearly no intent, it's a little bit ridiculous. I also think, when it comes to like, minor infractions and things like that, like as Pixie said, I think, you could have, you should probably have, a few strikes and things like that. I think, again, all of these general ideas sound really, really good in general. But I think there's going to be exceptions and nuance for all of them, right? So, like, sure, in general, if you do like minor infractions, you can get 3 strikes. But if you decide that you're just going to go ahead and bang your wife like on stream, just because you want some, I don't know, you're a freaking voyeuristic dude. At that point, I think there should probably be some immediate action. I think if we're like in the middle of like, some civil unrest and things are going really, really crazy and we're seeing ongoing protests and people are being galvanized to, I don't know, take the law into their own hands and start shooting people, I think, bolstering that crowd, I think kind of might be a little bit more, a little bit heavier than the idea of just in general saying like, I'm for or against protests, right? And so I think, the nuance in general of this specific situation would probably be better discussed as opposed to just the general idea.
I think you mean exhibitionist type of person. I wouldn't know anything about that.
Both work.
Okay. All right. The floor is yours.
Well, I was just going to say, it seems, how could you not consider this part of leftist cancel culture when Hassan has said way worse things towards conservatives and nothing happened to him? And the only reason this happened to Destiny was because it had to do with the BLM rioters.
Okay, wait, let's do this real quick because this isn't really a real argument and we can get on to talking about interesting things. So the way that it works is the point of any company is to serve the interests of its shareholders. This is the arrangement that we have right now of our economy. So a company is going to take actions that are in the best interest of the company. Right now, the most economically viable models are things that cater to left-leaning people for a variety of reasons.
Wrong.
One, because
look at Gillette. Gillette lost $8 billion after they went woke, and you just got done saying that it doesn't make any sense to you
one at a time.
Twitch wasn't going to lose money. You even admitted that yourself.
I agree that I don't think in this case Twitch would have lost money, but in general, being woke is more profitable than not being woke. Look at the companies that, okay, well, I mean, every single person that caters to advertisement, every single person on every large platform, all of them disagree with you. They disagree with you so much that you and other Republicans are fighting right now to get social media reclassified because you are so economically unviable on these platforms that you're trying to make social media like fall into that, what, Section 230 or whatever, so that they can't remove your content, okay? So like,
do you even know what the top Facebook pages are? And like, do you realize that almost all the top Facebook pages are conservative pages? Do you not realize that companies that go woke go broke? Look at Gillette literally lost $8 billion.
I don't care about, and Black Panther was the most popular superhero movie when it was made and had black people in it. Like, how many left-leaning people went before Congress to beg Congress to reclassify Facebook and Twitter as like public utilities? Like
That's because big tech is based out of San Francisco and is as leftist garbage. That has nothing to do with what's economically viable.
Well, even if I, which that's not even true, because we're talking, it's not that big tech is held captive, it's that advertising companies are holding them captive, right? At the end of the day,
Twitter mobs, AstroTurf Twitter mobs are doing it from leftist AstroTurf Twitter mobs.
Yeah, okay, cool. You made my argument for me. Leftist Twitter mobs are more likely to hold companies economically accountable if they betray that line of thought. So right now, it's more economically profitable to cater to left-leaning thought than right-leaning thought. That's just how it goes.
It's weak to do it. No, they cave because they're scared of the left-wing Twitter mob. It's not to do with economics. You literally look at the history of companies that have done this. The left is so intolerant and hateful that it's easier for them to just cave to the left-wing Twitter mob than actually stand up for whatever it is that they want to stand up for.
Okay.
They're not making financially viable decisions.
I have a question.
Dylan.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Why would a multi-billion or various multi-billion-dollar companies be scared of some people on Twitter who are angry if it's not going to impact their pockets? Like,
I'll explain it to you. Sure, I'll explain it to you. It's the same exact reason that China can control the WHO, even though China only gives the WHO a 10th or a 20th of what the United States does.
This is a total fucking red herring. This is bullshit.
It's about willingness to use power. It's about willingness to bully and attack and be intolerant and be hateful. It's the exact same reason why China can control the WHO.
Okay, Dylan and then Chud.
So, I mean, like, the thing I would respond is, yeah, Gillette's made money. Certain people have, like, played into it well. There's, like, this company called, like, Death Water, which, like, plays that water is badass. It's been able to find a very specific market. There's, like, Man Wipes, which is, like, wiping but manly. There's a lot of people who, like, play for very specific markets. But, I mean, you can look at other companies as an example, like Nike, for example. Like, there was this huge blacklist. Like, how dare they take that traitorous, like, Colin Kaepernick and use him as a brand. I'm gonna cut out the arrow out of my socks and burn my shoes, and next quarter they still made bank. And I would also respond that I would like to say that you can say that's just only like lefty, like hate mobs to go after, but I've seen so many campaigns from conservatives to either prop up companies like Goya, who like align with their beliefs, or go after companies who go after their beliefs. And Trump, if we're talking about free speech and going after it, isn't he the person who just said he wanted to put people in prison for burning the American flag?
Okay, listen, LCTRfan, listen up, man, okay? Go to your drawer, grab some tin foil, wrap it really tightly around your head, my dude, okay? Because there's a lot of conspiracy thoughts going on, and I'm worried for your brain, okay? I don't know why you're bringing fucking China into this. This is fucking ridiculous conspiracy nonsense.
Of course the communists is going to freak out about China.
I'm speaking, right? It's conspiracy nonsense, right? China's got nothing to do with this conversation whatsoever. You just want to spread your fucking bullshit narratives, okay? How about we actually talk about Twitch TOS and the impact it might have on streamers? Because guess what? I'm more concerned about that. I'm sure the serious professional streamers on this panel, not you, LCTRfan, obviously.
Go ahead and talk about it then.
Not you, obviously.
Quit spending all your time obsessing about me then. Go ahead and talk about it.
I'm not obsessing about you, my dude. You're chatting absolute shit and I'm calling it out. As simple as that.
Okay. Okay. Who's next? No one else?
Yeah, I mean, like right now in media, the kind of like left-leaning media presentation is just more economically viable than right-leaning media presentation, because left-leaning media presentation tends to be more inclusive to more groups of people to sell products to, like less trouble with different groups of people. Conservatives just don't seem to command as much power over these companies as liberals do or Democrats do. So I think that companies will cater and err like too far, in my opinion, on the side of caution to catering to left-leaning like outcry, I guess, is what it seems to be.
Okay.
Yeah, but okay. So I think, wow. So this conversation has gone like down a specific path, but I think there's a lot more to it, right? So ultimately, I think beyond just the economical part, there's also like the moral part that like I guess businesses would sometimes want to like stick to, and I could see them entertaining the argument that someone advocating for violence from specific people, which can like add very greatly to the civil unrest and kind of like add to murder counts or galvanize certain people to doing like very irresponsible things that could be like detrimental to the country or just detrimental to a few people's lives or however many, whatever. I could see them like more approaching it from that perspective, even if the financial obligation isn't something or the financial incentive isn't there. I could imagine them wanting to hold that position, period.
So I disagree. There are two things that I would expect to be significantly different if that were the case. So for the first thing, why, if Twitch felt like this was a really strong moral position that they had to take, why wouldn't the company come out and make a statement about it? Like, it seems to me that would be like a more reasonable thing, right? If they felt like this was so damaging to the public move or whatever, that they would come out and they would say something more specific about it rather than just like quietly unpartnering people. Technically, nobody would even know if I don't like make anything public. And then the second question I would have is that why is it, I hate to do the both sides thing here, but like, so me and other large political streamers on this platform have given very spicy takes when it comes to like violence against conservatives. So like I've given arguments that have been like pretty pointedly saying that like I think you can justify like killing Republicans in a video game, like based on stuff related to like DACA and whatnot. But I never got like a ban or any question. Nobody said anything to me ever, even though all of right-wing Twitter exploded and tried to cancel me over that. I didn't even hear from my account manager over that one. So it seems like there is like a political slant in terms of what gets paid more attention to. And again, I think it's because of economic reasons, but it seems like if it was really like a concern of like, oh, well, we need to keep the rhetoric responsible. Like there are a lot of people on the internet right now that are very anti-cop for whatever reason. And we just saw like two cops literally just got shot in cold blood by a dude that walked up the car and shot him, but nobody's had any action taken against them for that. Nobody said anything about like, well, maybe we should chill on like the kill all cops bullshit or whatever. But like, I don't know. It feels to me like it's slanted in a particular direction. There's kind of like a trend of that on the internet.
I would say that. You can go on.
Well, yeah, one, I like totally agree with you. I think there is absolutely a slant, like for sure. I don't know the direct quotes that happened in the direct quotes that happened with the DACA thing, right? Like I don't know them. I only know this specific one, so I can't really do it. And then also for Hassan's like quotes, I don't know specifically what he said. If someone can like quote that and it's like comparable, then I think you have a pretty solid argument that they're biased. But I think pointing out a bias doesn't necessarily exonerate you in this case. I would think that more of the bias would probably be indicative of the fact that Twitch is just being inconsistent. But then I still don't think you'd be able to use the fact that there's a bias to be able to say that Twitch's response here is wrong. It was just wrong in the previous instance.
Well, it's not that we're not looking for biases to exonerate anybody. We're looking for biases to see if we can ascertain what the motivations are for a particular action. So for instance, if somebody walks in and kills, like 10 Asian people and they don't kill a single white person, and then they kill like one white person or whatever, and somebody's arguing like, oh, well, it looks like this person is an equal opportunity killer. And you're like, well, no, it looks like they're really biased against killing Asian people. And it's like, okay, well, does that make killing the white person all right or whatever? Like we're just like trying to figure out like why they act the way they do. We're not trying to say that like one is good or one is bad. I'm not saying that like Hassan should be banned also, or some other streamer should be banned, or I shouldn't be banned or departnered or whatever. I'm just saying that like in general, we're looking at like a pattern of action to see if we can figure out why do they do the things they do, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'm not saying
sure.
Yeah. I mean,
well, sure.
Oh, I just
go ahead.
I would say if we talk about like the demographics of Twitch, I mean, I have disagreements with people on this. I do think the majority of demographics of Twitch are younger people, and younger people tend to be more left wing. And I think that if we had the community, say, of DLive, then there'd probably be more of a reaction when there was something said from a left winger. I mean, that's probably like inevitably the truth. Like companies will play generally to the demographics, and if more of in the way like reports work is somebody from the audience will like take the clip, send the report off, basically like, hey, look at this, this is bad, this violates Twitch TOS, and they'll examine it. And if you have a chat who basically all agrees with something that you're saying that might fall outside of the guidelines of Twitch TOS, there's probably more times that it'll can kind of just skeet by without anybody reporting it.
I think one thing I just want to sort of clarify my position in terms of like, Twitch's biases. I think it's more accurate to say that they're kind of biased towards progressivism, right? Like I agree that it's applied inconsistently, and I've heard people say some really fucking yikes shit on stream, like lefties and stuff, It's bad. I don't agree with it. I don't think people should use that kind of rhetoric, right? But like if there were lefties consistently calling for like, I don't know, certain things. Like it's
The blood of landlords to run in the street, or right,
look, listen. I don't agree with that rhetoric, okay? But in any case, I think like. I don't know, like obviously people do use that rhetoric and it's not used. I think it's just that it's applied inconsistently. I think if there was like a genuine chance that there was a leftist movement on Twitch that was going to overthrow capitalism or whatever, like it would get shut down in an instant, right? Because Twitch wouldn't want that. Do you see what I mean? So my concern is I think that some lefties are kind of like cheering on Destiny getting departnered. And if you want to take joy in someone's misfortune, then that's up to you. I can't control your thoughts on that. But at the very least, surely people should see the broader issue here, which to me is a workers' rights issue. That streamers have got no recourse, they've got no protections. If Twitch want you gone, you're gone, and there's nothing you can do about it. That is abhorrent, and it's something that we should all be worried about as streamers. So yeah.
Well,
No,
sure. Hold on. Really quick. Sorry. So like it does seem like in general, like that like again, these general ideas, I think we pretty much all agree, right? Like it all makes sense to all of us that there should be more transparency, so that way like people can actually learn from it and other people can learn from it, even if they weren't directly involved, that things need to be consistent. All of those things are like completely true. Like I don't think anyone disagrees with that. But I think if we start getting into like if we really want to get into the why question about why Twitch might respond in this way, I think in general, like if someone maybe 8 years ago was just talking about in general how like violent protests can be effective or they might be a viable strategy, like that might be something, right? But there's a very big difference between like when we recognize that there are actively people engaged in armed in armed confrontation, like about specific writing and about protesters and whatever, like what's happening right now in the current political climate. A statement can be significantly more inflammatory, especially if you happen to be like involved or in connection with the people that are directly tied to like Kyle Rittenhouse and things like that. I would imagine at this point right now those statements are a lot more likely to be received. There's already talk of it happening now, and it seems like those statements could be like really galvanizing. So I think the timing and like the appropriateness of the comments do actually matter. So where we want to look at like just the idea of like, did Hassan say something inappropriate? Sure. Maybe he said something inappropriate in the past. If Hassan was to make those statements in the middle of like violent protests happening in which people are actually like trying to hang Jeff Bezos, we have a totally different situation here. And I think that timing is a lot more apparent.
Are we worried though about it, like about these types of things falling so heavily on like certain political lines, or would we expect them to apply this unanimously and be like or not unanimously, apply it over like everything consistently and not like care about that as much? So specifically, let's say somebody comes on. So in my case, let's say somebody comes on and they like come out with a very strong statement, for instance, in support of like Hong Kong protesters, where that situation was like incredibly tense and there was a lot of crazy shit going on. And say that Twitch like had like a majority stake owned by Tencent or something, and they decide to ban that streamer for that. Do we think that that's still like a good use of I guess like Twitch banning somebody if they're doing it to protect the interests that Tencent would have of their company against like Hong Kongers? Or do we feel differently then, or do we think that this is disanalogous for a reason?
I think, look, my take is it needs to be consistently applied. There needs to be transparency, right? And that's it. Like, and the thing is with like arguing for workers' rights, which is broadly speaking what this is, if you argue for workers' rights in like offline, inevitably you will help to protect someone that has said a racist thing, right? That's just the inevitability of it. Like you don't not advocate for things that are going to help protect all the workers because there's like a few bad apples, right? So even if like someone really disagreed with what Destiny said and the way it was said and whatever, you need to put that to one side and think about the bigger picture and be consistent in your principles, because I am fairly certain, and listen, I'm going to call out the lefties a bit here. I'm fairly certain that there's lefties out there who will say they care about like the plight of Uber workers, right? Which are gig economy workers, but then they kind of won't give a fuck about streamers. But it's the same thing essentially. We're all fucking on shitty contracts that don't really offer us any protection. So I think it needs to be applied consistently, and I think people that are coming to discuss this and analyze it, they need to be consistent in their principles and their approach too.
I was
Sure.
I'm feeling a little bit like the view that I'm getting out of you to a certain extent here is that we should almost have the line like the U.S. government has, where it's like it's better to let 100 guilty men go free than to have one innocent man spend a day in jail. And the fact is, it's just not going to work like that for a public company. Like you can't allow thousands of Nazis and other people like that to be on the platform on Twitch doing this stuff just because they're very carefully walking the line, not calling for violence. They're not saying anything illegal. Twitch doesn't want these people on here. Doesn't matter if they're not breaking a law to any type of these things. It's a company. It's operating for profit. There's never going to be some community board of streamers that says, well, technically you weren't breaking the law. You know what? Ban reverse. It's just not going to happen because Twitch doesn't want that stuff on here. So, it's just a very different thing that's not happening on here. And, it's much as it sucks, there is not going to be clarity. There is not going to be consistency. That's up to you to kind of figure out what the current temperate.
Not with that attitude, though, right? Come on.
No, with any sense of reality, that's what it's going to be. Unless you really think that like Nazis going to start hanging out here and not going to get banned, of course they will.
So, really, from LCTRfan.
I've been trying to get. I've got like 3 things I wanted to address. First, what Dan's talking about is like that's fine and dandy if a Twitch platform wants to act as a publisher and curate who is allowed and who is not. If they want to be a publisher, then they should be held accountable like publishers. Regarding what Chud said, I think it's interesting that he wants to characterize the whole thing in sort of this Marxist workers' rights issues. But I think we actually agree that this sort of situation where these platforms have this unbridled power to ban people for what they say is not a great situation for, I don't think, the content creators and nor for a society at all. But I'm the only one that's actually proposed actual solutions to deal with this problem, and I've proposed I've proposed a new federal cause of action that would create a new cause of action, which is a claim that you can make in court against platforms if they enforce TOS against you in a discriminatory manner, if they ban you for political reasons. And I think you could have a federal statute that would entitle you to attorney's fees, treble damages, and punitive damages. And that's an actual solution to this problem. And Democrats obviously don't want it because they know that this at its core is political. And I wanted to go back to what Destiny said earlier. And even if Destiny is right, that this is not sort of like an inherently political decision on the part of big tech or Twitch in this particular instance, even if Destiny is right, that the reason they're doing it is because of the left-wing Twitter mob, that just goes to show that the only reason they're doing it is because the left-wing Twitter mob is calling for them and attacking advertisers and everything else. You do not see conservatives doing this because conservatives believe in free speech. And so it still is at its core a political issue because it's the left-wingers that are constantly calling for people to be banned. They're constantly calling for advertisers to be boycotted. So even if it isn't an inherently political decision by the company, the fact that it's being caused by sort of this left-wing mob, which you're not seeing the same thing with the right-wing mob because right-wingers don't ban.
Can you explain Trump's attacking like Goodyear Tire, or Trump's like attacking Kaepernick, or Trump talking about the fight? When you say
yes,
like
sure.
how is that not the president trying to cancel somebody?
I think that it's totally different because with social media companies and Twitch and Facebook and Twitter, these have replaced in all sort of aspects and it has to do with specifically about speech and people's opinions. Attacking a company for something they did is not the same thing as taking away somebody's platform and ability to speak. And I think speech is a particularly important special thing. Look, if you want to sell tires, that's great. Selling tires is not a constitutional issue.
What about when Trump attacks somebody like Kaepernick for his speech? And tries to deplatform from the NFL. I'm not asking you to get it. I'm asking how is that not canceling?
He didn't. Well, because he didn't deplatform him, because Kaepernick has the biggest platform he's ever had, and that's just Trump.
Do you think that it was Trump's intention to try and deplatform him?
Kaepernick was not removed from any social media platforms.
Do you think that Trump was aiming for that?
Yeah. What was Trump's intention?
Trump's intention was obviously to gain political support because he knows that most Americans don't like people shitting on the U.S. flag.
When Trump specifically was calling out Kaepernick, I believe he specifically said, somebody can find the words, I think he specifically was saying that NFL companies shouldn't hire him. What is he trying to do there?
He's doing that for political reasons. But even if I'm not doing what he's doing for. I'm asking you what he's doing. How is that not canceling? It's not canceling somebody because he's not calling for Kaepernick to be removed from the public square and not be able to. The NFL is not the public square like Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch is.
Why not?
either.
Hold on, I got a better one. Hey, listen, LCTRfan. So, what are your thoughts on the right? What are your thoughts on the right canceling the Dixie Chicks? It was very obviously a canceling. It's literally exact same in form. What's the difference between that canceling and left canceling?
Did the Dixie Chicks get banned from social media?
Why you're going to the effect and not the reason?
I didn't ask you about a specific platform. I asked you specifically about people on the right canceling them, and we can see the effects of the canceling. Hold on. We can see the effects of the canceling by an insane drop in sales, by refusal to attend their concerts, by not allowing them into lineups, not allowing them any radio play. That's a platform. So in all of those various forms, they canceled them in the same. So are you saying that the right didn't cancel the Dixie Chicks?
No, I'm specifically saying that canceling and the left-wing cancel culture is a very specific thing that has to do with the public square, which is the number one place where all people engage in speech, and that's a particularly specialized thing. The public square and the ability to speech, and the radio. They weren't kicked off the radio.
All of their plays, all of their ratings, all of their plays completely plummeted. Radio stations outright refused to play them, specifically country radio stations. All of their play completely plummeted. Their sales completely plummeted. They were no longer featured in any like country lineups. Like they were completely canceled by like literally everyone on the right. Like, or I can't say literally, obviously, but clearly.
I've never looked into the specifics of the
canceling is only off of like Facebook or Twitter. So I mean, and that you kind of win, but just because your definition is so incredibly narrow and nobody else uses it that way. Like I'm pretty sure if you would have get somebody fired for a political opinion, most people would call that canceling. But under like your very strange definition that it only counts if it's from Facebook. That's just kind of
wait, no. I also have something else to say very quickly. I'm kind of confused by your definition of public square, right? Just because like it's open to the public does not necessarily mean that it's like, I don't know, like under like federal property per se or anything like that, right? So like I can open my house and tell like people like anybody can come in. That doesn't necessarily make it like a public square per se. Like Twitter, Facebook, those are private companies. They're hosting it on like their servers. From what I know,
it's what you're doing is a form over substance argument, and what I'm making is a functional argument, which is that when you look at the actual reality of where we're at and where our political speech happens in the United States, and you actually look at just the pragmatic reality of the situation, not little form over substance like hyper technical distinctions, which is what you guys are all seem to be making. And
it's not I mean, like they're covering the cost. They're the ones that basically have to like monitor that, make sure that there's like no illegal content or try to like keep at bay. Like that's literally their company.
Okay, that's great. If they want to do that, that's fine. They don't get Section 230 protections then. They're now publishers and they're liable for everything that's said on their platforms. They're no longer platforms at that point. This is the whole Section 230 distinction. If they want to be publishers, great.
Other people publishing content on your platform doesn't make you a publisher. At that point, we might as well like be able to be able to sue YouTube directly for hosting copyright infringing content. That's an insane legal argument. It would destroy every single public social media in the world, or not in the world, but in the United States.
No, it depends on if you're actually curating the content on your platform and picking and choosing what can and cannot be said on your panel in bad faith for political reasons. That's what the whole Trump Section 230 executive order is. Like if you're making good faith decisions to ban people for things that are criminal or and they're not, and it's not based on political viewpoints, then that's different than what we're seeing today.
To be clear here, so hold on one second.
It's a complete derail. Let's bring it back home and focus. So, Destiny, earlier you had made a statement. You were saying like there should be consistency, which is obvious, and then you also mentioned the fact that like that it could become problematic if Amazon was to like say own 10% of Tencent and then decided to like start like advocating against people protesting in China and things like that. And of course, the injection of bias into into the system or into like their decision making process is automatically going to be a problem. And it's clearly already as it stands now, like a little bit. It seems like right now that it already is. It seems like it's very subjective, right? So like I mean I could totally understand like why there needs that's I guess speaks to the bigger point about like needing transparency and all of that stuff regarding these policies. But I think as it stands right now, every time we abstract the conversation and start like injecting other like possible confounds and things like that, it takes away from the conversation at hand, which was the original question: is is there sensibility behind their behind them threatening to remove your partnership? Is it like sensible, feasible, whatever, considering the specific terms, like right now, and considering what happened? And I think zoning in on that right now, like what's the political conversation right now? What did you advocate right now? What's a possible or even likely response right now if for people that follow you to be able to hear these words and then to move with that? And I think that's
but I mean, like, it's pretty clear that there's like a certain, like, so, and I guess, like, fuck, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I guess it's like, this is apparently a hot take these days. Like, rioting is really bad, but we have no problems. Like, lots of people are just blatantly like supporting rioting. And it's like, that's not a good thing. That's a very, very, very fucking bad thing. I don't even give a fuck about the business owners. It's actually even bad, like, politically efficaciously for the left, because it makes us look fucking horrible in the media. Like, the fact that, like, if I were to come on and be like, man, motherfuckers, you guys should kill a cop if you see him fucking around, blah, blah, blah. I could say that shit all day and I know I wouldn't get in any trouble for it because it's cops and, like, killing cops is, like, cool.
I don't think that's true.
That just goes to show the political bias.
No, but I don't think that it's true. I think if you were to, like, actually start advocating killing cops, I think there would be a lot of trouble that would go your way, number one. And then number two, I think people might be in general, I think, you're going to find like a mixed bag, right? Where some people are like going to be advocating protesting, and then some people are going to be even advocating violent protests. And I think these things are progressive in the sense that, most of these protests, obviously the vast majority of the protests have been peaceful. And then you have, a few bad actors within the protest that like make that do violent things, but you also have like large scale police violence against peaceful protesters, which of course then at this point protesters become responsive and things then can become like additionally violent. But I think the idea that people are just wholesale like behind violent protests, I don't think that there's any like polls or anything that we would be able to do to say that would support that. But even if there were people for advocating against violence against property, I don't think that gives anybody license to then say, well, since people are advocating violence against property, I'm going to go ahead and advocate that conservatives go and mow all people down with freaking rifles that are doing violence against properties. I don't think that we can make these things equivalent: violence against property and then violence against people's lives.
Well, Fanatic, that's not what Destiny's point was. Destiny's point was that other people have said much worse things about conservatives or landlords or something like that, and they haven't had the same enforcement against them. It's blatantly biased enforcement, blatantly political enforcement. And again, I'm the only one that actually has proposed a solution. Everybody wants to complain about this issue. I'm the only one that's actually proposed an actual solution that would actually put the power back in the hands of content creators. And this is something that like actually goes against my core beliefs. I'm not typically in favor of new federal causes of action or new federal regulation, but because this is such a unique situation, because this is such an important issue, and because of the situation that we're currently in, I'm willing to go against what would be more traditionally my libertarian beliefs to actually support a new federal cause of action to give content creators the ability to sue these platforms and void their arbitration agreements and everything like that. Nobody wants to
I had a
address
question
it.
for you, LCTRfan. So first of all, what is the exact amendment that you want to do to 230? And then, let's start there. So how does 230 exist now? How do you want to change it? Like if you get banned without some, tribunal, workers' rights thing? What
no, I would say, so 230, it needs to be amended. Actually, it kind of already says that in order to get the 230 protections, you have to have good faith enforcement of your TOS, which is how the Trump administration was to be able to do a thing. But basically what I want is that companies that are getting liability protection right now under Section 230 because they're platforms, they should lose their liability protection if they engage in politically biased enforcement of their terms of service.
So let me ask you this then. If you were to set up like a website like Republicans for Trump, and one of these guys, Chudlogic, goes on there and starts saying that you guys are all dumb, you don't know what you're talking about, and he starts doing this and you ban that guy, does he get to then sue you because you've reprised him for his political view?
I mean, I guess what you would have to, well, that's sort of blending two issues. One is the 230 amendment, and then the other is like my new federal cause of action. And what I would make it is that in order to be subject to this new federal law, you would have to meet the definition in the statute of, say, a large social media company or something like that, so that it wouldn't apply to sort of smaller upstarts, but it would apply to a certain size of companies that hold themselves out as publicly available social media companies. So I would, in that sense,
do you think Reddit would fall into that one?
So
That's a good question. I haven't really thought specifically about Reddit.
Well,
but
Reddit is one of the biggest.
I wanted to ask.
Hold on a second. Reddit is one of the biggest websites that there is right now, right? When it comes to people getting their news, obviously Facebook is huge. This is one of the biggest sites, the homepage of the internet. Should it apply to Reddit?
I guess so. Yeah.
So what about when a subreddit moderator bans you from there? So if you go into the Donald and you say, I love communism, and you get banned, do they lose it there?
Well, that's a great question, and that's something I think you would have to really think through hard. And
the problem is there's a million and one questions.
There
like
are.
This that,
I agree.
Yeah, you can't. So the reason that the CDA is so broad is that it's impossible to narrow it down on these fronts in any way, unless you specifically go and spell out, hey, Facebook plus Twitter can't do this, and then everyone else. But then what's going to happen? We're going to get some competitor to Facebook, to Twitter, that comes in there that isn't under the same rules and does it. So it's extremely challenging. I don't think you can apply it. And also, as someone who's created a lot of social media companies that have gone on to be very, very large, it would be an unbelievable hindrance that would, as a small business, when you're starting out, make it impossible to grow. If you're familiar with I think the GDPR or GDRP, that's an enormous expense for people to comply with that, and that's not even an American law, and you have to do it. Like these things,
no, and that's
easy.
a terrible law. No, that's a terrible law, and I would take issue. It's not that hard if you're going to consider yourself a social media platform. It's not that hard to not engage in politically biased.
Really? Because what about if you're on my social media network and you break some very rule that has nothing to do with it, and I ban you, and then you come back later and say that I didn't actually ban you for that. I banned you because you said 10 posts ago that you love Trump. Now I have to go.
That's what the lawsuit is for.
Yeah. So now you're basically inviting a lot of lawsuits for small businesses.
That's why that's why Democrats should love this. It's a huge boon to the trial lawyers. Democrats would traditionally love this idea.
Yeah, the only reason they don't, and wanting small business, you should hate that.
I want to break into this. So to LCTRfan's previous point about the left-wing brigade. What do we think of people like Chudlogic getting banned, which apparently had something to do with? But not that she got banned because she admits that what she did was wrong. She freely admits that. But that
Can you tell us what she did? I'm not familiar with that, or why she got banned.
She referred apparently to me as the N-word with a hard ER at the end. This is what she said in her previous stream, so this is the reason she's giving, not that I'm coming up with. My thing is, it seems like it was a brigade ban. So many left-wingers came. That mob that LCTRfan is referring to came for her, and that helped her get banned. So this brigade banning, I've seen this before, right? For it's directed at the right wing. Is that a problem?
I mean, the thing that's weird about Chudlogic, and I mean, I have a great relationship with Chudlogic. She and I love each other very much. But the thing that's weird about Chudlogic is she basically burned every single bridge she possibly had to basically everybody. And so anytime she like ever messed up, basically everybody, and this would happen all the time, like everybody would basically be like, let's get her, right? Because she burned every bridge. I mean, it was impossible. Like at one point, like the righties liked her, but then she like started going after me for being like a Christian and say, nah, you're fake, you're not a real Christian, you're a fake Christian. And then she like doing all this stuff to just like burn bridges with every community, to the point where like all she had to do was slip up once and she'd basically be canned, and she slipped up a lot. I mean, there's a lot of instances of her slipping up on the platform, and she was always riding the line. That was part of the reason why she got so much attention, is that she constantly rid the line. So, do I think it's right that everybody went and brigaded her? No, not really, but I also, like, it's bad for her that she lost her platform, but also, like, I generally don't want people calling people the N-word on Twitch, and if they get banned for it, I have no personal problem with that. I have the same position on Holocaust deniers, people who are denying the concentration camps in China full of Uyghur Muslims, people who do any of this stuff. And if people like see that happen and they kind of organize around it, I mean, they're just
it's an interesting
forcing
question
law.
For you, LCTRfan. Do you think that if you're a Holocaust denier on Twitch, do you think you should be able to be on there or not?
I wanted to ask him that exact question.
I think that as America's founding fathers recognized, it's unpopular speech that needs the most protection, because it's really easy to be in favor of free speech for popular speech. It's the unpopular speech that you actually need the protections for.
Do you think that as a private company, Twitch should have to have a bunch of Holocaust deniers on their homepage that would be affecting their bottom line? And I assume you would agree that potentially we can imagine a world where all the top streamers, I mean, look at DLive, where all the top streamers were Holocaust deniers. Do you think that might affect the type of ad deals that Twitch could do?
Well, I think this idea that if you allow Holocaust deniers,
DLive is
Holocaust deniers are just going to dominate. Everybody's going to watch Holocaust. I think that says a lot more about
DLive.
That's because everybody that gets kicked off and everybody's like that goes to DLive.
Yes, where they don't get kicked.
Yeah, right. If they were actually on Twitch, they would be irrelevant. If you actually think that Holocaust deniers are super popular, super popular, that says a lot more about you than it does about anybody else.
Oh, wait. Right? Or can I say something quickly?
Sure, you say something quick, but I really want to get into this.
We can look at the alternative and say, like, hey, you know what? People who are Holocaust deniers tend to be fanatics and are more tempted or lean more towards the side of, like, let's say, mass spamming or going on, like, hate brigades or, you know, trying to, like, mass attack and dox victims, which then leads people off of the platform because they're not that fanatical and they don't want to deal with that. So, you know, maybe there is something to be said about platforms becoming overcome with racists or Nazis or who knows what, especially when fanatical people tend to drive out normal people.
I think that the best way to deal with racists and Holocaust deniers is to publicly shame them, ridicule them, beat them on the battlefield of ideas, and explain why they're wrong and convince other people that they're wrong. That's the way you do it. You start banning them for this, that you actually empower them by banning people just for saying something you don't like. You actually empower them, and you empower trolls, and you create then corners of the internet where that's all that exists.
I assume that in your world, you would want the homepage of something like Twitch not controlled by any recommended algorithm, but something purely just agnostic, like the amount of viewers you have. Is that right? Or do you want someone at Twitch determining who gets on the homepage, for instance?
I don't have a problem with like algorithms as long as they're not blatantly politically biased.
Okay. I mean, the example I was going to use there, if you said that you would like to have them based off of numbers, for instance, would be we could see a world where someone would be on the homepage being a Nazi, saying the N-word consistently. Why? You'd think they can't view?
They're not popular. They're not. But they could
view their way there, LCTRfan. And under the new section that you've done, the new section 230 thing, I won't be able to ban a bot out of fear.
No, view botting.
I don't know if it's a bot or a person.
Not protected. View botting's not protected.
How are you going to know if that's a bot or a person? It's a real computer in Russia coming. I don't know if it's controlled. How am I supposed to know? I'm
pretty sure they can figure out what are view bots and what are not.
You can't. As someone who's done tech companies, you can't. That's the whole idea, is that it's based a view bot in many cases, but you can't do it if it's done correctly. It is literally a hacked PC somewhere across the planet, and you're telling them to do something. There's no way that you will know that it's a bot.
But let's also not pretend for a second. Like, we can say, like, oh, the sunlight shall destroy their ideas. I can tell you that people who, like, are these hardcore conspiracy theorists, QAnoners, people who deny the Holocaust, this is a big one that's been happening a little bit, people who deny what's going on in Xinjiang, China, these people are dedicated to their craft of making it look like that it's all a face, it's all falsehood, and the Uyghurs are just fraught with terrorists, and they're a bunch of terrorists, and they need to be put in these camps. They work night and day to build these theories up, and I can tell you, I don't even think the majority of these people, I don't think I could handle, and I try to study this thing like hardcore most of my time, so I can. These people are dedicated to the craft of lying, and if I see somebody on my platform, I hate the idea that I could build a social media company, and then I have to give platforms to people who are actively making it easier to put people in concentration camps, who are right now in concentration camps.
The conversation abstract once again, LCTRfan, you keep doing where what you're doing is like, we're trying, like the topic of conversation is one thing, and then you just keep like literally at every step of the way, like, okay, well, let's zoom out a little bit and let's talk about just in general the idea of politics involving in, like, you know, social media and whether or not they should qualify as you know, public. Okay, and let's zoom out even further, and you just keep doing that. Like, I feel like if if you want to have a general topic about that conversation, I think it should be had. But as it stands now, you're literally just derailing from the topic of conversation, which was supposed to be Twitch's implementation of terms of service, whether or not it's fair, and whether or not like that. That's
right.
What
Now it's devolved. Now it's devolved literally into an idea. Is free and open debate a good thing, or should we just ban everybody that we don't like something they say? I'm literally having to defend basic principles.
I'm not making a
like
personal
free
attack
thought
on you.
and open
No,
debate.
no, it's not the same.
One at a time. Fanatic, finish up, and then I want to hear from Dylan.
Yeah, dude, your framing here is absolutely absurd. No one's here talking about whether or not, in general, I disagree with it, like anything you're talking about. This is a separate conversation is what I'm having. In general, I'm more than willing to have a conversation about what you're talking about. However, what you're talking about has literally nothing to do with the specifics of Twitch applying their laws or applying their terms of service, like whether it's equitable or whatever. We can have that conversation without it devolving into the general application or constitutionality of Facebook's policies on politics. Freak out of here, bro. You're just derailing the conversation to your pre-prepared talking point that has literally nothing to do with the topic at hand, and you've been doing it consistently the entire conversation. It's absurd.
Well, go ahead and talk about the topic then, instead of responding to me constantly.
But you're derailing it and taking it off in an absurd direction, saying that Holocaust.
So let him derail. Just keep talking about the main topic then. Don't get baited.
Yeah, you guys are getting baited. That's my take. If you guys don't like what I have to say, talk about something else.
You're framing it as Holocaust, because this is the thing, right? You'll go off on a tangent. You'll say, Holocaust denial is just ideas you disagree with. That's like fucked up, and you've got to call that shit out. And then you just sit there and go, just talk about the fucking debate. You're the one that's fucking derailed it, you fucking dick.
Okay, so Noni,
where were we?
We're done with ad homs. Okay.
Oh wait, can I finish my thing before I'm in California, so right now we have unreliable power. I'm sorry, third world country now.
Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, the only thing I was trying to say before is I'm pretty sure that you could come onto this platform and give really violent takes in regards to like either killing cops or supporting like violent rioting and whatnot. I'm pretty sure you can do that and be okay. Which seems like, so it doesn't seem to be as much, and this is like a very tense situation now related to like rioting and whatnot. So that doesn't seem to be a problem because it seems to align with like the more profitable political ideology right now, which tends to be left leaning. Did you disagree with that? Yeah.
Well, possibly, but let's bring that analogy a little bit closer, right? Now, let's say we had Christopher Dorner and a whole bunch of other bad actors that were doing exactly what Christopher Dorner was doing, right? And it seemed like there might have been an active response, an active call and response almost in a way, as if people are typically, like if we saw like a great uprising of police officers like rebelling against or whatever, and that was happening and people were actively dying. If you were to make those comments about that during that time, I think it would have a totally different effect than someone in general just saying, I think all cops are bad. Even though I think all of them are going to be. Go ahead.
What about it during a time of like active looting and shit and active rioting where people are making calls for people to loot and riot?
Okay, so there's a very big difference. So again, if we're going to make this like comparison between like the destruction of property and then wholesale killing an entire group of people, I think there's a very big difference between advocating for like destruction of property or a response to police officers acting violently against peaceful protesters and telling those people, hey, I think it's sensible for you to engage in violent actions against the police officers or against police stations. I think there's a very big difference between that and then saying, hey, I think citizens should just go and start mowing down anybody that's violently protesting. I think there's
But it's okay to say we should just go and like burn down businesses and loot and break like businesses up. That's fine.
I'm saying, I hope that you're not. Are you still saying that these things are equivalent? The destruction of property.
They don't have to be equivalent. Both can be bad. You understand that, right? Like,
okay, but
I can't get on here and advocate for rape and say, well, it's different than murder. It doesn't matter if they're different.
Sure.
They can both still be really bad things.
So yes, even though two things can be bad, it doesn't mean okay. So remember when we were talking about degrees earlier to Pixie's comments about how certain things might not be so bad as such that they would require you to immediately respond in a very severe way. So I think
you don't think the destruction of people's property isn't like some really bad thing that shouldn't be responded to immediately? This is like one of the worst things you can do to a human being. What do you mean?
Well, if I can finish my point, the point was that I do believe that there are very, very big differences. Obviously, there's different degrees between the idea of destroying property for political advocacy and like killing people. I think they're a very big difference. And
real quick, I know, because you're not saying anything. You keep preaching to the audience. So I'm asking you. Everyone here knows that there's a difference between killing people and destroying property. Okay, you don't need the platitude. Okay, but what I'm asking you is, will you acknowledge that both of those things are really, really, really fucking bad, and that neither of those should probably be advocated for ever? That the destruction of property and the destruction of people's livelihoods, in some cases, can be just as bad as killing somebody.
I want Fanatic to answer this, but we do have a topic on the subject coming right up. So keep that in mind.
Sure. So to answer your question, I mean, you're accusing me of just constantly preaching to the audience, but I mean, it's the same thing. Hey, we all have to agree that riots or violent protests are bad. It's no one needs to say that. Of course they're bad. No one here is disagreeing with that. But you
literally advocate for them. So what's the difference?
Okay.
So
we have to wrap up this topic anyway.
Wait, wait. Well, hold on. If you just acknowledge that it's a bad thing
really quick? Yeah. Let me respond really quick.
All right.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily advocate for violence. There was So I don't advocate for violence. What I do is I did say that I do believe that they are effective. And I was arguing with someone on whether or not violent protests are effective.
Okay, hold on, wait.
No, you're lying.
No. I have to do this. Hold on, please, because I get misquoted so much. Okay. Mm-hmm. So people have said that I've literally called for white nationalists to go and kill BLM protesters. Okay. So your exact quote was, historically, violent protests have a great impact politically over our lifetime, from the civil rights movement and before. That's why. So I absolutely think those people should go violent, loot, break windows, do whatever the frick you got to do, light police stations on fire. I think all of it ends up being particularly effective. How is this not advocating for violence and arson?
So, okay, I guess technically, you could say that it is. I mean, it is advocating for it in
so why is it okay when you do it, but it's not okay to argue that those people can defend themselves?
Because then immediately after that, I did definitely go into my stream, and I mean, on that same stream, I did definitely immediately respond to those people and say, hey, in the same token, I would never encourage an individual to do it. I would never ever.
So
I would never. Hold on. Let me finish my point.
Exactly the same thing I said 50 times in my stream.
Let me finish my point. I definitely made a very clear distinction between advocating for an individual to doing it and talking about the efficaciousness of its viability.
And I've done this totally a million times as well. I say it in the exact same. If you watch 10 seconds before after my clip, multiple times I said that Kyle dude is a fucking moron. Why would you ever go and die for somebody else's property? I wouldn't even die for my own shit. But then again, I'm wealthy because fuck it. But I've said the same thing a million times. But if I were to say that, your arguments against me I know exactly what you would say. Well, you can't control the context of your clips. Well, people are going to quote stuff out of context. You should be prepared for that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure,
so why are you allowed to use well, you just did. You're using nuance and context to explain away your advocation for violence, which you absolutely did. I didn't even advocate for it. I just said they would have my blessing. I didn't say anybody should go and do it. I just said, if you did do it, you have my blessing doing it. You're literally telling people to do it. You make a stronger call to violence than I do. So why is it okay when you do it, but not when I do?
So, first off, when I think those two things are very, very distinct in the sense that one, obviously we've already talked about the difference between violence against human beings and violence against property. Number one. Number two, I'm not aware of you making a distinction. Okay. So the reason why hold on really quickly. The reason why in context,
your statement is very different. I do need to move on to the next topic. All right. So let's move on to the next topic after this.
It's considering the fact that you've been in contact directly with
topic. No.
Hey, I'm running this, Dylan. Go ahead. I'm running this, Dylan. But all right, finish your point, buddy.
Okay, so the very big difference here is if I had a following that was actively protesting and things like that, and I was advocating for them to get violent, there'd be a very big difference thing.
Do you think I have a following that's actively killing protesters?
If I could ever finish my point, you've been in direct contact with Kyle Rittenhouse's friends. They've been messaging you in DMs and things that you mentioned in Bobby Fino's conversation. And so the idea that those people who would obviously be sympathizers with the cause, that they would be following and be influenced by your words. In that case,
I had one guy. Hold on. I had one guy email me that said he was on his private Snapchat list, and he sent me videos of Kyle cleaning graffiti earlier. That's the extent. I didn't even email that guy back. What do you mean? I'm in you're making it sound like I'm this literal cult ringleader. What?
No, come on now. Don't put words.
That's literally. Hold on. I have no contact with any protesters. The entirety of my audience is incredibly left leaning. I don't understand where you get this idea that you think I'm absolutely directly emboldening these people to go out and kill BLM protesters while you're actually advocating for violence, among an audience that might already be actively protesting. Your people are way more closer to arsoning buildings than my people are to killing protesters.
So I don't know who my people are necessarily that you're
I'm
referring to.
guessing it's like a
regard.
pretty left, extreme left, progressive left, or
Not even close. Not even
so.
close.
Wait, you have an audience full of conservatives, and you're telling them to go burn down police stations?
No, I don't have an audience full of conservatives. I think we're pretty much in the middle. But in any case, I myself, I'm talking about an ideologically perspective that doesn't necessarily. I wasn't advocating for any of the people in my stream to do so, or any of my followers. Like you can try your best to try to paint it as that way, but that's just not the case. That's not.
I'm not trying to paint anything. I'm reading your words directly, and you're trying to use
out of context.
No, that's not out of context. It's literally what you said.
It is.
If you want to involve greater context, if you want to,
if I respond with the word context and then you say this is what you said, then it can still be out of context. Is it possible?
Okay, I agree with you.
Is it possible that those are the words that I said and that those words are out of context? Is it possible?
Yes, and I agree.
Okay, so then my initial charge that these are out of context is probably accurate.
Why
right?
don't I get the same level of charitability? I said 1 trillion times in that conversation that Kyle was stupid, Kyle should have been there, that nobody should be out there defending other people's property, that I would never advocate for anybody to go. I've said that 1 million fucking times. But you saw one 17-second clip of me, and you think that you can like instantly say that I'm encouraging people to go out and murder people like BLM protesters for property?
It wasn't just a 17-minute clip. It was also like a 55-minute debate with Bobby Fino over. It was also a long conversation.
You clearly didn't watch any of those.
I watched literally all of it. Did
you miss the part where I said multiple times that Kyle was stupid and that I don't advocate for people going out there and doing it? Did you miss that?
I missed the part where you said that you thought it was stupid, but I also caught. I caught the part where you hold on. I caught the part where you said that it was stupid, but I also caught the part where you said it was legally justifiable, and I also caught the part where you said that where you were creating these weird distinctions where you were saying things like, "Well, yeah, Black Panthers grabbing guns, showing up with guns in places is provocative, but Kyle Rittenhouse showing up with the gun isn't provocative," and like all of these crazy distinctions that you were making, which were logically untenable. I did catch that too.
Stop throwing around buzzwords, okay? Logically untenable. All I said was that I thought it was strange that people would support Black Panthers showing up with guns at protests and saying that's not escalating things, but all of a sudden Kyle Rittenhouse doing it is escalating things. For the record, I support both people doing it, because if you want to go to guns to some fucking place, even if it is escalating it, that's your American right to do so. And fuck it, if I was going to fight the cops, I sure as fuck would have assault rifles and guns on me. But the difference is I'll be honest and say I support both people doing it. And I'll also say both people are probably slightly escalating the tensions, because if people get into fights and guns are involved, people are going to die. I just don't know why it's okay for one side to do it and not the other. That's not a logically untenable position. That's a hypothetical that tests the consistency of your moral conviction.
I think this turned into a trial. This has turned into a trial of destiny. And you know, I didn't. Well, I think this is dumb.
Of course.
Wait. Let me speak. Okay, right. Here's the issue. There's a much broader issue here at play.
No, nobody disagrees with your broader issue. That's what they keep saying over and over again. No one disagrees that we need more worker protections on Twitch. Is there anybody here that disagrees with it?
No, but Destiny, the point I'm making is this is now all about you. And you know, I'm sorry, but I think there's a more interesting issue to discuss. But it's the trial of fucking Destiny, and I'm just like, I don't know, why are we so focused on this one issue when there's a whole other bunch of shit happening?
Because it's a bigger
topic. I'm okay with that.
No, and it goes to bigger issues. It goes to bigger issues. That's why.
Okay, so I want to make. Hold on, I just want to let other people in. So we're moving on to topic 2. Okay, so we're already in it. Or fuck the ending statements for the other one. All right, that's fine. I just want other people to be able to participate. All right, so we got.
Just to be clear, that last topic was about my band. That's the only reason I made it about. I'm not trying to make every topic about me, but it was like about. Okay. Okay.
No, and look, we're already on the topic. So we're talking about the deadly force being used to protect private property. So we're only on the topic. I just want to make sure everyone else can participate as well.
Chudlogic was accusing me of going off topic, and he didn't even know what the topic was.
What the fuck knew exactly what the topic was about? It's about Twitch TOS. You fucking brainlet.
Okay, so there's a bit of confusion happening here. All right, so we're moving on to the next topic. The topic happens to be what Destiny and Fnatic were already talking about just now. All right, using deadly force to protect private property. All right, should we be able to do that? Okay, but I want everyone else to be able to participate because this is a panel show. All right, fine. All right, so I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves. Probably. And go for Fnatic and Destiny at the very end because you guys are clearly ready to go at this. All right. So Pixie, should we be able to use a deadly force to protect property?
Should we use lethal force to protect property?
Yeah.
No. My answer is generally speaking, no. I do not think just for the sole protection of property you should use lethal force. I think if you feel like your life is in danger and you happen to be on property, then that's a different case, right? You're protecting your life. But I think just for property, no.
Okay. And before we move on to the others, thank you for all the subs that I'm getting. I'm seeing all those gift subs. Guys, thank you for the support. Without your help, we can't keep this going. So thank you for all the subs. It's September. You can sub to me for much cheaper than usual. So if you can support the channel that way, that'd be great. We also have a donation button below the stream. So please, thank you for helping us out. All right, next, Dylan Burns.
I mean, yeah, I think people should be able to use lethal force to defend private property. I think the idea, like the protection of private property, is an extremely American value. It is something that was like part of the foundation of this country, and I think that when we really like break down like what private property can mean to people, does that mean like every time someone, like if you're own a store and someone grabs a bag of Cheetos and makes a run for it, you pull out like the M16 and you go at it? No, of course not. But it means that if your home is in danger, the thing that maybe you need to sustain your livelihood, to feed your kids, or and a lot of times your business, which a lot of times people need to put food on the table, I think it can definitely be justifiable to defend your property using lethal force. Now, do I think it's the first thing you should jump to? No, of course. You give warnings like, hey, get out. If you have the opportunity, you should give warnings. Try to avoid the use of lethal force. You know, the idea of shooting the air, that type of shit. You should try to do that. But I do think it is something that people should be allowed to do to defend their livelihoods, to defend their homes. I mean, every single time there's an economic downturn and people lose their houses and lose their businesses and lose all their shit, suicide rates skyrocket. This thing that we're just like, it's, you know, it's just a business, whatever. The insurance will come out, everything will be fine. It's not nearly that simple. This can really mean life or death for many people when it comes to the houses that they own and the businesses that they own. Now, I think, of course, morally it becomes different when it's something that you could easily dispose of. I think if someone takes one of my many hats, I don't think I should shoot them. I think it definitely depends when it comes to like the moral justifiability, like the how much value that piece of property means to you.
Interesting. LCTRfan.
Well, I don't think you can answer, can you use deadly force to protect property in a simple yes or no manner. There's a difference between force and there's a difference between deadly force. So I think in general, using force to protect property, obviously, yes, that's morally justified. That's also legally justified in almost every state. And so that seemed just the question, like, is it okay to use force to protect property, is such a far left-wing communist perspective. It's just absurd. It's like there should be no disagreement on this issue. Of course, you can use force to protect property. There's also this distinction between property and life that's not always so clear. So, for example, arson. If you're going to burn down somebody's house, it's not just so easy to say, oh, that's just an attack on property, because burning somebody's house down, you can actually kill people. And it's the same with burglary and robbery and all sorts of other stuff. When those things tend to lead towards violence against human beings. And so that's why almost all states have laws that allow you to use certain levels of force to protect property. Now, I tend to agree with what the law typically says in a lot of states, where it's like it has to be proportional force. And so if somebody, doesn't have a deadly weapon and doesn't have any kind of weapon at all and is trying to steal, a pack of gum from you, you can't shoot them. But you certainly can, use some minor level of force to prevent that. And then if that person then responds and escalates and pulls out a weapon or something, then that enables you to use deadlier force. But this whole distinction between property and life is not always an easy one. In terms of the question, I think it's a communist perspective question. It's bullshit. Of course, you can use force to protect property. That's the whole basis of, our country, essentially.
Sure. I'm a socialist, so I mean, I guess you're not too far off. All right, Dan.
I would say I agree on a lot of those fronts. I think any encounter that you have where you think that you could reasonably fear for your life, I think that you should be able to use force. So if you're showing up to my house with a baseball bat, I think that you should be allowed to be killed. If you're showing up to my store with a baseball bat and I'm behind the counter, I think that you should be able to be killed. If you're just coming in and shoplifting chips, probably not so much, no. So it very much depends on the situation of what's going on. I also think it's a certain amount states' right issue. I think that states should, to a certain amount, be able to legislate how they want this to happen in their state, as far as things like castle doctrine and stand your ground, and all that type of jazz. So that's up to, I think, specific states to determine what that is. Personally, my view goes very much onto if you are going to put me into danger, into any type of danger where there's any chance whatsoever that I could lose my life, even if you had no intention whatsoever of killing me, if you put me in a situation where I can reasonably believe that I could be killed, then yeah, I think that's the case. And that it's not always if you have a weapon. If 20 people show up at my front door who are 300 pounds each and fucking 6'6", I can reasonably fear for my life that something's about to happen if they say, hey, we want to take all your shit. That's a situation right there that they've created as a result of doing that. So yeah, I would say in those cases, yeah, I would be a use of force is fine.
Like the Beast. Like the Beast, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you spending some time with us, buddy. What do you think? Should people be able to use, specifically, should have the moral, is it morally justified to be able to use deadly force to protect private property?
Thank you, Prime Case, for the invitation. I beg 1,000 pardons for my frequent tardiness to these panels. When I think about how often I show up late, I'm reminded of Miyamoto Musashi. He is the ancient samurai who had a war strategy of showing up an hour or two late after a duel started. And he did this as a strategy to put his opponent off guard emotionally, to sort of rock him a little bit. But that's not my intention. I'm just a guy on the West Coast who's 3 hours behind you and who has a 3-year-old son. So I appreciate your being patient with me.
I love Wake the Beast. I'm sorry.
Of property, I think it's good if we have a definition of what property is. What do you exactly consider to be your property? Does your definition of property just extend to the material possessions? Or do you consider your life to be your property? Now, if we're going with that, life being something you own, your own life, well, then most certainly you have a moral right, and you might say a moral obligation to protect your life. Now, me as a man who has a family, I consider my wife and also my son to also be property of mine, but I'm also property of my family. See, when you're married to someone, they own you and you own them. It's a mutual combination of ownership. That's the.
So, what I meant was, like, I like how he could trip. Okay, let's wait.
But if I came out of my house and saw someone about to set fire to my home where my family was sleeping, well, absolutely. I would have a moral obligation to protect my life and the life of those who put trust in me, namely my family.
Okay. Chudlogic.
I'll get to that, but I just want to wait. The Beast. Do you read that stuff from a script or?
No. What I invite you to do is that Chudlogic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. This is my normal manner of speaking. What I do on my stream every day is a lot of free association. If you're curious about my speaking patterns and habits, come join us. I'll show you all about it.
Okay. It sounds a bit like a cult, but okay. Anyway, look, listen. So the thing is, right, okay. I've been thinking about this a lot, obviously, coming up to the panel. And do you know what? It's fucking complicated, right? I think that anyone that comes to the table with like a simplistic answer has not done enough kind of thinking about this topic, you know? Because, for example, you know, your house counts as property. Now, if someone comes and smashes your window, do I think you should be able to blow them away? Well, no, obviously not. That's like a totally excessive response to that. But if someone's going to come along and torch your entire house to the ground with all your possessions in, then I think that's a different story. And I think that a certain proportionate level of force is required. When it comes to like shops and things like that, it gets even more complicated, right? Because generally speaking, I would say that, property could be replaced. Like, you know, obviously you can have insurance and things like that. But the problem that you've got is insurance is not always a sufficient way of dealing if like your entire shop gets torched or something like that and gets burnt to the ground. And whilst I understand the lefty perspective is, you know, life is more valuable than property. And of course, I agree with that sentiment. I think that we live in the reality of the paradigm that we exist in under capitalism. And people do put a lot of stock in property, and obviously that's going to influence their decision making. So I would say that obviously if I was being, you know, utopian, idealistic in the ideal world, we'd have the perfect system where someone's shop being burnt to the ground wouldn't be as catastrophic as they would have like a massive impact, on their life. But we live in the reality that we live in. Unfortunately, that comes with, I think, the fact that there is an element of force that you need to use to defend property. If it's catastrophic, I think in some situations, if every other avenue has been explored and it's not going to work, then yeah, unfortunately, I think deadly force may have to be an option potentially. But yeah, that's my kind of broad take on it.
Okay. And then Fanatic, and we'll end with Destiny. Fanatic.
Hey, so yeah, I think really these things, oh man, there's like two different conversations you can have about it, like a moral point or a legal point. And I think legally, like the way they typically tie these things is there has to be in order for you to be able to defend your property, sorry, my alarm's going off. In order for you to be able to defend your property, there has to be you have to be under threat, right? So I think in the cases of like for what Wake the Beast was saying, if someone's like burning his house down with his kids and people like sleeping inside, I think that person can reasonably say that like this person constitutes a threat, like to the livelihood of his children, right? Or his wife or whatever. But I think the idea of someone damaging your property, but it doesn't have, but your life isn't in imminent danger, then I think that I think the idea of like giving like wholesale license for people to like be violent in those situations is a bit ridiculous. My livelihood is my computer. It's where all my music is stored. That's what I do. Like that's how I make my living, so on and so forth. But if someone was going to like trash my computer, and it has like 10 years worth of work on it, yeah, it would hurt. Do I have the right to kill the person for doing so, even though that's my livelihood and how I make a living? Absolutely not. Like my life, my actual life has to be in threat. And like the abstract idea of like, oh, my livelihood, I don't think it's the same thing. Regardless of how much it sucks, the idea of investing and pouring years and years and energy into your business or your life savings or your parents' money and all those things, I still don't think it constitutes like imminent threat to your life, like immediately, such that you would need to have the right to kill people. I think that gets kind of absurd there.
Stephen, please.
I mean, I'll give the lefty perspective on this is like, I mean, material conditions are the only things that lefties talk about. Of course, they're incredibly important. I think that your personal property or your private property, if we're talking about like the entirety of a business or whatever, absolutely it is worth more than the life of a person that thinks that they can destroy it. The idea that you could form a society morally around this idea that people can infinitely destroy property and there's nothing you can do about it is just unbelievable to me. I think that if somebody decides that they're going to go and destroy somebody else's property, they should understand that they're entering into like a contract where they're forfeiting their life essentially if the person decides to protect their property. I'm really confused about like two other things. I'm really curious. I guess we're getting into open discussion. Like this idea that like you couldn't defend your property with lethal force. Does that mean you're not allowed to call it cops? Like because if the cops show up, they're going to use lethal force if it comes down to it. Like so you just have to like submit to whoever comes by. And it's like, oh, all right, well, you get to blow my property up because I guess it's worth more than or your life is worth more than the property. And then like the idea that we so quickly throw away this concept of livelihood. I don't know like what the economic status everyone here is, but like some people will never be able to replace like businesses that they lose. I don't know. Again, like for me, like I can replace anything I lose because I'm decently wealthy. But for a person who's like family-owned business is being destroyed, they're not going to get that business back. You know, the insurance doesn't easily pay out all the time, and by the time it does, you might not even have a business left. So yeah, I think I would say that in most cases, I mean, with the reasonable caveats, if somebody breaks into your store to steal a stick of gum, probably shouldn't be able to kill this person. But if somebody's coming to destroy like the entirety of a business or a house, absolutely your property is easily worth more than that person's life. 100%.
Yeah, private property is literally one of the foundations of America. I mean, private property is an incredibly important thing, and this idea that a lot of leftists want to throw it out is totally contradicted by what Destiny said, which is exactly right. Which is the leftists are obsessed with property issues and material conditions. They just want to take it from other people. But private property is something that we should revere, we should respect, we should pay a lot of attention to private property, we should value it. We should absolutely defend people when they defend their own private property, whether it's real property or otherwise.
But hold on, really quickly. There's two things though. Like the idea that like calling cops is like inherently lethal. Like it's not inherently lethal when you call the police. We like expect police officers to make a reasonable judgment call. I don't think that they typically do when it comes to black people or other minorities, but whatever. Like the idea is supposed to be right. Like the way things are supposed to function is that police respond and react accordingly. So the idea that just calling cops is inherently violent, I think that would be a little weird. probably just wrong. And then I think also framing the idea that, oh yeah, you're supposed to just allow your property to be like destroyed and there's nothing you can do about it. I don't think that's either like that's a proper characterization either. Like I think the idea is that we have like legal ramifications and that we're able to call police officers who are supposed to be the arbiters of defense in these kind of situations, and that there can be a proper response. We have a firefighters if like maybe someone's trying to light it on fire. Obviously, some of these things can respond too late. And like how efficient those things are totally different conversation. But the idea, but no one is ever advocating, yeah, just allow your stuff to be destroyed and there's nothing you can do about it. Like that's not at all.
Well, so for the first part here, cops are ultimately lethal. I mean, like, if there's anything we should have learned after everything that's happened, is that that's what a cop's final alternative is. So if somebody is destroying your property, if they don't comply correctly, whatever, the cop's ultimate authority on violence or monopoly on violence is going to result in them killing the person. That's just how police function in Western governments. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, the idea that there are legal ramifications around your property. No, there's not. If somebody tortures your property, you just lose it. There's no legal ramification there. You're shit out of luck.
Wait, no, yeah, you can sue the person. You can absolutely sue an individual.
Do you think the type of people that are committing arson to your property have the money to replace it? No, come on.
Not necessarily. Okay, so not necessarily. So then, of course, like that. So first off, you have your insurance, and then secondly, you can sue the people. Again, listen, you keep doing this thing. I get it because I think I agree with your overall point, but it sounds to me like you're framing this as if like it's like an all or nothing thing, which I just think is inaccurate. But overall, with your overall point, I do think that in general, there's not always ramifications for people that do it. Yeah, somebody doing that stuff.
Okay, real quick. I'm sorry. I have to be more forceful in my conversations. You say I keep doing this thing. I'm not doing this thing. You're showing your inexperience with how insurance works in the real world or how legal ramifications work in the real world. Firstly, a judgment that you get against another person is only as good as that person's ability to pay it. The idea that you would suggest a legal ramification for somebody that's just torched your business is laughable. One, they probably don't have the funds to pay it back. And two, they're going to be in prison for a long time, so they're not going to be acquiring the funds to pay back. So there are no legal ramifications. Secondly, insurance. If you would ever give the argument, just use your insurance to somebody with cancer or to somebody complaining about how expensive their diabetes medication is, we would wheel out all of these explanations about, well, sometimes insurance doesn't cover everything. Sometimes there are high deductibles. Sometimes it takes a long time to get paid out. Sometimes insurance companies don't want to pay out. All of these things are equally applicable to insurance regarding property loss. This is painfully obvious to anybody that's had to try to recoup costs for a hurricane or any other business that's been destroyed, as we've seen in plenty of articles that have been published on businesses that have lost property due to riots and have had trouble recovering the costs from insurance companies. Everybody here should know that insurance companies don't want to pay it out. Yeah,
but that's not. No, it's not a matter of. No, wait. It's not a matter of lack of information at all. It really is just, I guess, a difference in framing, right? So the idea that like legal ramifications are only like financial restitution is just inaccurate, right? For example, if someone kills like, I don't know, the breadwinner in a home, like the father of a home, like you're not saying, oh man, I hope this person goes to prison for life, and that somehow will like result in some sort of financial restitution. Not all forms of justice are in the form of financial restitution. So the idea that yes, you will still have some really negative experiences in the sense that you probably will lose your business, I've definitely considered that, but I also think that that's probably preferable than the idea of vigilantes just going around and wholesale killing people anytime they feel
why do you frame it that way? We're not talking about vigilantes going out and killing people. We're talking about one person killing another person trying to destroy their property. Keep it there. Don't make it this weird thing about vigilantism, killing innocent random people. We're talking about deliberately misframing it to try to make it sound more extreme than what the argument actually is.
I have an example that you guys can use. Hold on.
Yeah.
Something that you guys can much more easily debate on, because I think it's something that'll make a lot more sense. During the LA riots, you guys all remember this very famous time where you had some family-owned Korean businesses, and it became, a meme with all these Korean guys that were on the roof of their stores with rifles, getting ready to shoot anyone who came at their store holding like Molotov cocktails or bricks or anything like that. So let's talk about in that case, which is something that is actionable, right? So what do you think should have happened in that case?
I think the police should have been involved a little bit more heavily.
The thing is, famously, the cops wait. Famously, the cops were there, and the Koreans were like, then the people came, and the cops just got in the car and left once the rioters came with guns, because the cops were outnumbered. So, like, famously, the cops were there, but they just kind of left.
Sure. So, I mean, ultimately, I think it's really, really simple position. I think that we have a legal system, and I think I'm always going to appeal towards the legal system. Do I think it's always efficient? No. I'm a black man in America. There's no possible way I'm going to think that. But the idea that I'm going to instead say, well, you know what, the legal system fails us. So I think every now and then you should kind of take things into your own hand. Like, I just don't think that that's a good recipe for morality. I don't think it's a good recipe for a continuing system in which we're supposed to function together. Things will begin to stop functioning the second we start saying any old random Joe, uneducated schmo can decide at any point to start defending his property for any reason, and we're going to leave it up to regular citizens who are uninformed and uneducated to make the judgment call on whether or not it's appropriate for them to be killing people in response to their property.
So
I don't think that's a tenable
up,
position.
Two things. One, you don't leave it up to random citizens. You leave it up to the legal system to determine if their use of force was correct or not. You said you have a lot of trust in the legal system, which is strange to me, given everything that's happened.
I didn't say that. Not exactly. I didn't.
Okay, well, you want to appeal to the legal system figuring out these cases, which is strange, equally strange to me. But sure, but that's fine. They can figure out the case of self-defense then. If you trust them to show up and you know, display their force properly as police officers, I guess you should trust judges and juries to figure out if your use of force was appropriate. One. Number two, this idea that like if any Joe Schmo can go out and like kill people for blowing up the property, society would fail if we were all extrajudicial like that. How do you reconcile being against that but being in favor of people going out and rioting and destroying businesses and being able to do that in a responsible manner? How can you ever reconcile these two positions?
So I think the idea of like telling like of so it's a matter of this. It's an ideological perspective. I think I've clarified it enough, but I'll just do it one final time, and I think maybe you'll be able to get it this time. So it's really simple. I believe that riots are effective, and the argument that I was making is whether or not riots are effective at causing change historically. And
we're not talking about if it's
effective.
But
hold on. But again, there's a very big difference, and that's why I said at the end of the conversation, I absolutely said under no circumstances would I ever advocate any individual to do it, nor would I advocate any groups to do it. I'm saying that I believe people will do it, and I think that it's effective. So that was the point of my point. So if you want to, so that's my position now. So if you want to keep on trying to quote me out of context and try to use that to a point, then it's not. I'm not trying to quote you out of context.
You're dancing and not answering the question so hard. So I'm going to ask this incredibly simply.
Ask it really simply. Go ahead.
Very simply. Do you think it's morally justifiable to riot? And
no.
Do you think it's more? No. You think that? So you think that all forms of rioting are immoral actions?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well,
so I want Wake the Beast. I think you had your hand up. Pixie, I think you might have had your hand up at some point in time in the past. So if you want to say something, great. And then LCTRfan, I think you want to say something as well. So Wake the Beast, Pixie, LCTRfan.
I haven't heard Pixie speak. Would it be okay if she went before me?
That's fine. Pixie.
You're so sweet. So I don't know, like, if there's kind of two separate conversations going on here, because like when I think what somebody like should do, I think, okay, in the ideal sense, what should happen? And yeah, ideally, I would think that if it's possible to not kill someone who's just threatening your property, who's not threatening your life, let's say like theoretically, 100% you're safe, then yeah, you probably shouldn't do it. Now, is that understandable if someone in like the heat of the situation is freaking the fuck out and does that action? Yes. And then that goes into the legal system, and then that's an entire other conversation. I don't really like the argument about a life that's like, that by destroying the property, you're destroying all the hours a person put in there. Because then with that logic, if you kill someone for going into your property because you felt like threatened by them, or you felt like they were threatening your property, then you're also advocating to take away all those hours from that person, right? You're essentially advocating for a death penalty for a person destroying your property that can potentially, not always, and a lot of times won't completely be reinstituted while you have zero chance of the person's dead, if that makes any sense. And since I generally believe in like rehabilitative justice, and I think that for like a very large part, people are kind of a result of their circumstances, I do not know if I would advocate for what is essentially a death penalty.
Okay. I have you on the list, buddy. Wake the Beast, do you want to go?
Certainly. I want to comment about how essential property rights, or the idea of property rights, are to society. We are born as free men and women, of course, which means that at birth, we only have to adhere to what's called natural law, which means that you have the right to do whatever in your power to preserve your organism alive. Now, what restricts us from that is the social contract. And the social contract means that we give up that right. We give up the right to do anything necessary, including using violence, for the purpose of securing our organism alive and protecting other people. And we do that in exchange for other rights, namely the protection of our life, our liberty, and our property. That's how it was originally stated. Of course, in our legal tradition, it says the pursuit of happiness, okay? So what does that mean? It means that you have a contract with your government that says it is legally obliged to protect your property rights, or at least give you the ability to do such for yourself. So if the government demonstrates an inability to protect your property, and if it fails to give you the tools to do so, we risk losing civilization, because the social contract is what keeps us from going back to the jungle. And I don't think anyone here wants to go there.
Really quickly, and even better, right? Like, so this idea that we would like be giving the thing that I stated originally, but just stated a little bit better, the idea that we would be giving people the license to be making these decisions is just a little bit absurd. So we already have like systems. We have due process. Due process is specifically meant to be able to like adjudicate in these kind of situations, whether or not someone is guilty, whether or not someone did something wrong, whether or not the actions are proper or whatnot. Like, and I think that's great. And I think that that's something that the country is founded on. It's not always it's not always enacted fairly, but the theory of that makes sense to me. So the idea that we would instead be giving other like individuals like the ability to make these judgments is a little bit absurd, unless of course it's in the case of self-defense, right? So in those cases of self-defense where it's like, hey, like I'm literally going to die here, yeah, go ahead and defend yourself. And then of course it's going to be up to like the jury to decide whether or not you were actually in a matter of self-defense. And I don't think anybody here disagrees with that. But the second you start trying to abstract it to, well, like, I mean, technically speaking, like this car of yours is your livelihood. It's how you get to work. And you're already living paycheck to paycheck. So at this point, somebody robbing your car is self-defense, even if you weren't in it. So you can go ahead and shoot at your car that's driving away and try to kill the individuals. Like, this is where it starts getting really crazy. We do have a legal system for that, and that's not self-defense. So like self-defense of property, it doesn't make sense unless of course it embedded in that defense of property is a self-defense.
Just real quick, I'm gonna add, I don't know how long you've been in esports, but like the way that you talk about property is so unbelievably dismissive to me that it hurts my soul. Like when you're like, okay, so you lose your car, like is that really like that? Is that really your livelihood? Like, yeah, for some people that like it might not be a matter of life and death, but it's about as close as it can be. Like when you're talking about not being able to pay for bills, not being able to pay for like food for your children, like you are so incredibly dismissive when you talk about people losing their livelihoods. Like I'm really curious if when it comes to like federal funding of welfare or when it comes to like stimulus checks being given out to Americans as a result of like the COVID-19 crisis, I wonder if you're as dismissive of those people when it comes to things like healthcare or insurance. I wonder if you have the same attitude of like, or maybe you're like hardcore conservative or libertarian, like LCTRfan over here, and I just don't know it. Like it's astounding to me how quickly you just throw away like, it's just your shit. Like who cares if you can get to work or not? Like is it really that big of a deal? Like come on, you're abstracting, bro. Like that's insane to me.
What first off, like factually, you are abstracting in that situation. Secondly, no, you're applying degrees here, which are just inappropriate. I'm not saying that these things aren't important, and I explained how the fact that if someone's living paycheck to paycheck and they lose their car, it very much can super duper negatively impact their livelihood. At that point, that person might not be able to get to work. They might not be able to take their kids there. Like we've had a whole big old debate about the idea of just simply moving people out of the infrastructure where their family support it's an unrealistic thing, right? Like that was a conversation in Prime Cave's one of his other things. So like, it's not that I'm being dismissive. It's that I'm saying the value of a life supersedes that. And I think, and I'm also making the statement that I don't think that it's up to citizens to be making these distinctions or making these judgments on how important these things are to their life such that it enables them the ability to kill. This isn't dismissive at all. It's just a really simple fundamental idea that people should not be in charge of deciding whether or deciding the importance or quantifying or qualifying the importance of their property in consideration of their lives. That's what I'm saying. It's a really simple position. It's not dismissive. I recognize how unbelievably important it is. I mean, I came from freaking poverty, from poverty. Like I understand these things. It's just, again, whether you're in poverty or not, you do not get to value your car versus someone's life unless your life is threatened. And I mean, and thankfully, legal precedent agrees with me. So yeah.
I mean, legal precedent also let all the cops that killed Breonna Taylor like walk free too. I don't know why we keep appealing like the legal system is going to be some perfect arbiter of justice that's going to save us in cases where we're wrong. But it's very strange to me. I don't know.
LCTRfan and Dylan Burns. And
well, it is strange.
How the hell did LCTRfan get in front of me? I have no clue.
He's basically, he can't come right out and say that he supports the rioting and looting, but he also doesn't want to, address it head on. So he's tiptoeing around it, and it's really hard to kind of follow. And I guess his position is that if you're a human being and somebody's going to come and destroy your property, you just have to sit there and stand and, okay, go ahead. Here, take my car. Here, steal my shit. burn down my house or whatever. And this whole idea that like you immediately have to go to taking somebody's life and that the person who's engaging in the activity of damaging property is not responsible is totally divorced from reality. The law does not support what Fanatic's saying. And in fact, what it is that if somebody comes to try to actually take your car, if somebody actually comes to take your car or to burn down your house or something, you're initially gonna ask them to stop, and then you're initially gonna grab them and try to push them away, and it's escalating force. And at some point, if you're trying to use minimal levels of force to prevent somebody from damaging your property, and they continue to escalate it, at some point it's no longer about property. It's that person has now escalated force against you, and you're actually now protecting yourself, which is why I said at the very beginning, this distinction between property and life is it's a very difficult distinction to make. This whole topic is so twisted and like a horrible perspective, because of course you have both a moral and a legal ability and frankly obligation to protect your property. I actually think you have a moral obligation to protect your property against people with force, let alone a moral obligation not to, or to. It's you actually have a moral obligation to use force to protect your property for various reasons, including duties to your family, duties to society, everywhere else. This whole topic is just, I think the perspective is a little weird. Of course, you have a moral obligation. The idea that you just have to sit there and let somebody destroy your property. This obviously comes from all of the rioting and looting we've seen, which is incredibly unpopular. The fact that this is like what Twitch leftists think is like an interesting political topic is belied by the fact that even Joe Biden is now condemning rioting and looting. This is an incredibly unpopular political position in the United States. And if you leftists want to keep defending destroying property and not using force to protect property, go for it. It's not effective as much as you may think it is.
So excellent straw men's all the way through there. So I'll just go ahead and address one of the things that you actually said that made sense, but I can tell you.
What was one of the straw men?
It's very much a straw man. Number one, I never ever said that anybody has to sit there and do nothing, right? So that's a straw man. So yeah, anyway, so the thing that you did say,
I think that's a gaslighting.
It is.
Wait, come on, let him finish. Let Fanatic finish. Come on.
I already defended it, and I'm pretty sure you know better, so I'm not going to grant you that one. But what I will give you is the idea that you were talking about like how somebody's trying to do something, and you're like pushing them away, ask them to stop, and things keep escalating. Eventually, during those incidents, eventually it's going to become a self-defense thing, right? Eventually, if things keep escalating and all of a sudden somebody pulls out a gun, now all of a sudden you're in a self-defense thing. Now, I'm not advocating like, oh, you just got to wait there to the absolute last minute until your life is on the line until you die before. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that there needs to be reasonable threat, reasonable idea that like your life is in danger.
You just got done saying that people shouldn't be able to use force to protect property. You literally just got done saying that.
I know, I get it because you can't really keep up with the idea that these two are not mutually exclusive. So the idea is you can defend the use of your property. And as you said earlier, which I agreed with, by the way, you earlier said that there's a very big difference between force and deadly force, right? Those are two different things. I agree with you. In certain situations, if there's not deadly force, if your life is not threatened, I think you could use force. If somebody's trying to steal my, somebody's trying to pull me out of my car so they can rob my car, absolutely I could put hands on that person. Now, do I have the right to do for lethal force? No, there's a very big difference there. And the law says so. That's crazy. So yeah.
So you're straw manning. You're arguing against the idea that everybody thinks you can just use lethal force on any little tiny amount of property. That's a straw man.
No, I didn't say that.
We're at the extremes of everything at the moment, right? Like we're talking about, oh, someone steals your car and you like immediately pull out a gun and shoot them. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of other steps here, right? Like we're kind of jumping straight.
That's what Fanatic is arguing about. And it's like, nobody said that. It's a straw man.
Would it be okay then? So let's say somebody is coming forward to burn down your house. Shooting them would be wrong. What if you step out there with a baseball bat, but you have a gun and eventually there's a scuffle and then it escalates to you having to shoot them? Is that all of a sudden okay?
I think that would be pretty different. Yeah, sure. I would think it would be a lot different if so. Wait, so you're basically asking the question is if you started out with attempting to do non-lethal force and then it escalated to lethal force, would that be okay? Sure.
Okay. What if you were a smaller person and it's too scary for you to like physically engage with them? So maybe you have like your gun out and you're like, hey, I need you to leave or else I'm going to shoot you. And they continue to do it. Is it okay then to engage with force with a gun?
So I would think at that place, if the fact that you're responding in this way and you're in, okay, again, if there's like an imminent threat to someone's life, like legally, then I think, yeah, you would have every right? So like if your kids, as Wait to Be said earlier, your kids are sleep at home, sure, like whatever. If I'm living in my own, wait, hold on. If I'm living in my own property by myself, I don't have anyone sleeping at home, my life is not in threat.
No, I'm just talking about property. So, I'm saying that you go outside. Let's say that you said that if you go outside and you have a baseball bat and you're holding a gun and you're like, get away from my property. And the guy looks at you, he's like, no, fuck you. And then he comes at you with his own baseball bat. You can pull out a gun and shoot him. You seem to say like, that's okay because you like made steps to escalate. What if you're like a smaller person and there's a guy out there who's about to torch your house? Let's say you're a little old 90-pound, 4'10" lady, okay? And you're like, fuck, like you have a gun. But you don't shoot him immediately. You're like, hey, like go away or I'm going to shoot you, like stop or whatever. And the guy comes at you. Do you have a right then to defend your property? Because it's all in the name of defense of property because you're going out there, putting yourself out there. Like, would it be okay then for the little lady to shoot the guy?
So, Fanatic, I want you to answer that question. I want you to answer the question. And then we'll have more time for hypotheticals later on. But I do want to hear from Dylan and Chud next. Okay. So answer the question, Dylan, Chud.
Yeah, so to be fair, again, like in the case of the little old lady, if she doesn't have any, like if there's not a reasonable threat to her, in other words, if there's not kids in the house or anything, if it's just her and it's just they're going to destroy her house, but they're not going and she has the ability to get away, then yeah, I think she should get away. And I think at that point, like her choosing instead to just go ahead and shoot the person is not legal. Like, but right now by law, it's illegal.
When I think
Dylan.
Okay, so first I'll go back to Pixie. That's originally who I wanted to respond to. That was like 20 minutes ago. The idea of like the death penalty being kind of like them choosing the death penalty in their own hands. The difference here, I would say, is the death penalty is when you have somebody in prison and who is no longer a threat to anybody, a threat to anybody's property, a threat to no one. And the death penalty there is then taking that situation and still killing them, right? My opposition to death penalty is one of my most deeply held political and spiritual beliefs. I think that's completely different than them being an active threat to your property and your home, your place of refuge, or the place that you use to sustain your family and is your livelihood. I mean, we can all say, well, what about what's the line for livelihood? We can have a debate, well, what the line for livelihood is, but I think somebody's small business was most certainly, the building that contains it was most certainly be in front of the line for what is on top of the line of what is your livelihood. I think also your home would be another example of that. And to go back to Fatigue, when it comes to this idea of, well, you just let we can call the police, but let the justice system carry it out. When it comes to that, even if we capture this person and we put them behind bars, the justice system doesn't give you your house back. The justice system doesn't give you your business back. Your justice system doesn't give you your way to sustain yourself and your family back. The justice system doesn't do that. Maybe if the person who burnt down your house or destroyed your house was an extremely wealthy individual, maybe Bill Gates has a mask on and he's throwing Molotovs at people's homes. I don't know. Usually that's not the case, though. And so I don't think either of those examples really are comparable here.
Wait, so okay, really? No, you're right. Sorry.
Pixie, please.
So
okay.
Well, I want Pixie to respond, then I'll let you in. I promise.
Okay,
I promise. Pixie.
Okay. So basically, what I was trying to bring with the whole death penalty thing is that you're essentially like making the person in the situation the judge, jury, and executioner. And as far as I know, even if somebody does kill another person in self-defense, sometimes it still goes through trial to determine like whether it was actually self-defense or not. I know there's some cases where it doesn't, but it still happens for that exact reason because we have to like assess the situation and say like, is this something that's actually okay with happening? I think
usually it's police officers that make the determination at the scene, right? If you might not even get arrested if they think it was a clear-cut case, and that would be it. Just go ahead.
You almost always get arrested if
someone breaks into my house.
If you use your gun to kill, what I learned was if you use your gun to kill somebody, you're always getting arrested, and you're always going to have some kind of charge levied against you. Maybe that was hyperbolic, but when I was learning all my gun shit, that was like something that I'd always been told.
Yeah, that's why you should have insurance. If you're going to carry a gun, you better have insurance that's going to pay for your legal fees if you have to use it.
I don't think that's true, but we'll look that up.
Okay.
Pixie, please.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the point that I was trying, and this is why I mentioned like the should versus the ideal versus whether it's reasonable or not, because as I stated before, yeah, like theoretically people should not do it if they're able to avoid it, right? Theoretically speaking, we can also create changes in our system which help recuperate people's physical damage. So for example, like, and obviously this is that we don't exist in a perfect system, these things aren't in place, but there are things that we can put in place. So for example, in when, for example, you can garnish a person's wages if they're owing money to somebody and they're not paying it back. So even if they can't pay it back all in that second, eventually they can. Or we can create a system in place where we actually, like, I guess, an extension of welfare where private businesses or companies are able to get that money to help rebuild their stores. Now, of course, this is all what I want ideally. That's not the reality for many people in their situation. So would I understand if somebody freaks out and does something that maybe they shouldn't do? Because at that stage, they're, scared, they're afraid, they're going crazy. Yeah, that's reasonable. Like, I can understand that. But when I talk about should, I'm talking about the ideal.
Wait, I got
okay.
it. Wait, really quick.
Wait,
No.
Come on, Fanatic. You've been speaking loads, my dude. Come on.
Yeah, you're right. It's just they both addressed me. That's all. But I got it.
Okay, right. So let's engage in this hypothetical. There's a 10-foot tall anti-for super soldier charging towards your house with a Molotov cocktail in both hands. Okay, and they're going to burn your house to the ground, right? And you do every other option to try and stop them. It doesn't work. I would say that at the very end, if every other method has been tried, okay, I think it is okay to use lethal force to protect your property, and not just because it's like property. Do you know what? I'm actually going to agree with one thing LCTRfan said. It's probably the only thing he'll ever say that I'll agree with, okay? And that is, with arson, you can't be certain that isn't going to become a massive fire.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm pausing it, but this chat, Hackstock, you absolute fucking dumbass. Okay, so my take was not that property is worth more than life. Something could be worth more than what you have, and you can still destroy it in the preservation of what you have. Great example. If someone's going to use their Lamborghini to destroy my Ford pickup truck, obviously the Lamborghini is worth more than the Ford pickup truck, but I think that person should have the right to destroy that Lamborghini. For fuck's sake. And my entire hypothetical on when people should be able to defend their self. Here's a great example. What about ethnic cleansing? Do you think a population that is being ethnically cleansed from an area by being forced from their homes should just have to let it happen and not pick up arms in defense of their property against the government, say like the Turkish government in Afrin? Huh? What about that? Get that this fast shit. Get the fuck out of here. Fucking dumbass.
Hey, that's bad.
Yeah, okay,
hey, Destiny.
Well, that's what we're talking
Destiny,
about.
yeah. Quick question. Hey, if someone like came down and burned down your entire business, and you get there after the fact, the business is already on fire. They're no longer going to light anything else on fire. It's already fully in flames. But you know the person who did it. Do you have the right to kill them then?
No, of course not. The threat's been de-escalated.
Oh, okay. So then it's only when the threat is against you. The threat has to be an active threat, an imminent threat, right? It's not just
you're
about,
not killing somebody because you're trying to play judge, jury, and executioner, or because you're trying to pass. You're doing it to prevent a crime that's happening. You're doing it to protect yourself, or as an extension of yourself, your business.
So great. So then at this point, then I guess we kind of agree in the idea that, it's not about being the judge, jury, and executioner. So in this case, we do have a legal process that prevents people from being judge, jury, and executioner in these cases, right? Because if the action is severe enough that it warrants death, then that it sounds like the distinction between discovering something in hindsight and doing it as it actively happens, that the distinction here would have to be imminent danger, right? And that seems to be what the legal precedence is, which is what I've been arguing this entire time. The idea is, if you are in imminent danger, such as that your life is threatened, then you have the right to use lethal force. But hold on, the imminent danger. Wait, really quickly. The last thing, the imminent danger in this case is not just defense of property. The imminent danger is self.
Wrong. That you're just dead wrong.
Legally. Show me any legal precedent that disagrees with me.
That's the whole point of castle doctrine, is the idea that you don't have to retreat from property that you own. That can include a car or your place of residence, of course.
But even with the castle doctrine, you have to be able to say that your life is reasonably in danger. It can't just be.
No, you don't.
No, the whole point of the castle doctrine is that you don't have to retreat from your property, from your place of residence. I think sometimes that can extend your car, but definitely your house.
Your car stands your ground. Your car stands your ground. Castle doctrine is your place of residence.
A castle doctrine, also known as castle law or defensive habitation law, is a legal doctrine that designates a person's abode or any legally occupied place, for example, a vehicle or home, as a place in which that person has protections and immunities permitting one, in certain circumstances, to use force, up to and including deadly force, to defend oneself against an intruder, free from legal prosecutions for the consequences of the force used. You don't have to retreat from your...
LCTRfan. Make your point.
No, so I was just going to say, regardless of even whether it's a castle doctrine state, the law presumes that if somebody is illegally breaking into your house to commit a crime, the law presumes just as a matter of law that your life is in danger, because that's how it works. That's what normally happens. And so that's why this whole debate is so disconnected from the reality of American politics and American law. The real question is, should you have to retreat before shooting somebody, or should it be just you can just shoot somebody? But make no mistake, almost all laws, even without castle doctrines, if there's an ongoing breaking and entering into a home, it's the presumption is that your life is in danger and that there's potential violence, because that's how it usually happens and that's how it works.
Yeah, and I'd be okay with that. Like in those cases, like if someone's burglarizing your home, like
totally. Can you kill all burglars?
Wait, can we real quick? Can we stop saying the person's life is in danger? Literally nobody disagrees. This is the coldest state in the world.
All right. Here's a better one. Okay, good. I got you. I'll take. Here's a better example, right? That doesn't involve someone's life being in danger. So say someone, I don't know, you've been through this experience. I've been following you for a long time. I'm a big fan. You've been through this experience. Say someone is like DDoSing you on a regular basis, and they're like literally causing like great harm to your life and your income and your livelihood and your children and like the way you sustain yourself and all of that. Someone's DDoSing you on a regular basis, and now you have information as to where they are and that they're going to DDoS you, and you recognize that this is part of this ongoing thing that's of great harm to your life, right? If you are aware that they're going to do this, does that give you the right to shoot them, even because they're going to cause great harm to your livelihood and so forth?
100%. Yeah, easy, of course.
Wait, you said what happened?
As long as you've exhausted other means of de-escalating the situation, yeah, of course.
So wait, what do you mean? So you ask them to stop, they won't stop.
Hypothetically, let's say that you contact the person, contact their parents, contact their family, contact the FBI, and you've exhausted all their means of recourse, and it doesn't work. Then yeah, sure.
You can go shoot the person for DDoSing you.
As opposed to you can let the person continue to deprive you of your livelihood. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I guess we just fundamentally disagree then, because I think if my life is not threatened, yeah. So I don't know. We can keep going around in circles, but yeah, that's where we disagree, and it's okay.
No, that's cool. So you've got 2 kids at home. Okay, you need to feed them. Mom takes them to school or whatever. You go outside. There's a guy outside, and he's slashing your tires.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, oh, wow, fuck you. You fix your tires. You don't get to work that day. Costs you fucking $600 for new tires. Maybe you find them cheaper, $400, $300. Let's say the next day you got guys slashing your tires again. Let's say you call the cops. They go, nah, fuck off. We don't care. Let's say that you contact the guy's family. They're like, oh, we don't believe you did blah, blah, blah. You just let that guy slash your tires every single day. Your kids are getting hungrier. Your wife's losing weight. You can't afford new clothes. You just say like, oh, well, fuck it, dude. This guy's got me, I guess. Like, fuck
Destiny,
me. What do you do?
No, I would probably violently fight against that person.
I have a
yeah.
No, let the guy answer. Why would you cut him off?
No, it's okay. I would violently fight against that person.
Answer the question.
I would try to use. I would use force.
It's a good question.
I would use force and not lethal force. Sure.
So you would use force. So let's say that you beat him up and he comes back the next day.
I'm going to probably try to escalate that force to make sure, like, now I'm breaking something where you can't.
Let's say that he shows up the next time and he's holding a baseball bat with a nail in it. What do you do?
At this point now I have a legal reason to be in fear of my life.
So what you've done is you've exhausted all possible means, and once that wears out, once you've used all of them, you would kill him to protect your property that secures your livelihood.
I wouldn't kill the person, no.
Just said you would use legal force.
Wait.
No.
Can we broaden this out a bit?
Make it specific. This is literally the whole point of the argument. Why would you broaden it to be meaningless? This hypothetical literally explores the entirety of the problem. At some point, you would kill a person that was depriving you of your livelihood within this very hypothetical.
Yeah, you're right. Listen, that's fair. If I've gone through literally every option and it seems to me like that things aren't happening at that point, then all of then my entire foundation has been uprooted, right? So like right now it seems. Wait, listen. Right now, it seems like to me the idea is if somebody was doing this on a regular basis, that I would be able to call the police. I would be able to use legal options. If it gets to the point to where I recognize that the legal system is so flawed and so inept that it's literally going to allow a person to continue to damage my property and my livelihood on a consistent basis at that point, then now I no longer have the idea of defending on the legal thing, on the legal system. And if I can't depend on the legal system, eventually I do have to defend myself, right? So but that's a very big difference. But there's a very big difference.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, there's a very big difference between me going through legal steps after legal step after legal step and exhausting them all and discovering that they're inept, and then me just saying as a first course, well, if a nigga gonna burn my stuff, I'm about to shoot.
And I've already said
that's very different.
You should exhaust your legal options, but once you have, you would kill somebody for property. Your property is worth more than their life.
So police are in the area, then
right. Do you agree, Fanatic? Do you agree with what he's saying? I mean, I feel like we've come into a consensus here between you two, right? Like, like pulled this hypothetical down to a single point here. You seem to have agreed with him. just now, right? So
Right, the idea
are
is
you
if you
still
legally
fighting with Destiny? Like, what other grounds are you fighting him on? So, like, I want to get this done so other people can say things as well.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Done. Yeah, so I guess the idea is if you've legally exhausted every option that you have available to you, then you have that right. But then I guess in the same case, then the idea is Kyle Rittenhouse didn't do any of that, so then he would still be just as wrong as everybody else.
They literally did. The cops weren't helping any of those businesses. That was the whole point.
The cops were actively there. They had limited
No, they
resources.
weren't. The
but
cops were literally not actively there.
No. So, Chud, if you want to expand on this point, please go ahead.
Okay, listen, Destiny. I've got a question for you, if that's okay, right? So, your position is that if someone is depriving someone else of their livelihood, the person that's having their livelihood deprived can potentially use lethal force if all other means are exhausted. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay,
assuming that's the only way to get them to stop. If you can just like hit the person or whatever, make them stop. But that is included in exhausting all other means. So yes.
Okay, so let's say you've got a small town and you've got like a shop, right? You've got a small shop, and like a big company, Walmart, comes in and they set up shop right next to you. Okay, and it absolutely crucifies your business. It destroys your livelihood. Is there any point at which there'd be a moral justification for the small shop owner to go and kill the CEO of the company for doing this thing?
Okay, talk about absurd hypotheticals. I don't think competition via business is the same as like physical attacks against your property.
Wait, absurd hypotheticals? That's your fucking thing, isn't it?
No. If you want to go back and revisit any hypothetical I've ever used, they are incredibly analogous and incredibly on point. Every hypothetical that I've used thus far has had literally a real-life parallel. The one we just explored was literally Kyle Rittenhouse defending other people's property. This idea that a business owner coming in and out-competing you or whatever justifies you killing them, like, speaking of social contract, like capitalism is how we've arranged our society. We all agree to play by these rules. That's absolutely not the same as somebody coming in and destroying your property.
All right, can I?
Fairly similar. It would have a significant impact on your.
I can expand on what you're saying, Chud, pretty easily. So,
sure.
Destiny, imagine that we're back in time 10 years ago, and you're streaming then, and there's no laws on the book for DDoSing yet. It's not illegal. It's not really quantified yet. So what they're doing is technically legal. Do you still get to kill them?
Yeah, I would say so. None of my earlier arguments were informed by legal arguments. It's not the fact that DDoSing is illegal isn't the matter. It's the fact that somebody is like personally aggressing against you, and doing damage to you on a personal aggressive level. Yeah, they're violating.
So anyone who interferes with your livelihood, legal or illegal, negatively. I think that's what he was saying with the competition.
Yeah, but the problem is that the word interferes, that's too broad a category. So for instance, I can interfere with your ability to be happy by playing music you don't like, or I could interfere with your ability to be happy by skinning alive your children. Those aren't both just interferences. These are two incredibly different things, right?
So you're talking about someone
that annoys you. The other is
keeping you from
actual
working.
Physical aggressive attack towards you.
The DDoS would be someone keeping you from working, essentially, right?
Yeah, it would be like a pointed like individual attack against you in order to damage like your property, basically.
Well, that could be the same thing with a big company. They could be an intentional plan to go into the town to scoop up all the business and just fuck all the companies that are there already. Like that's something that happens.
Done in a manner that's illegal, then yeah, I mean they're.
Wait, so why does legal versus that shouldn't matter, right?
It shouldn't matter.
Hold on, right. Hold on. When I say the problem is that when we talk about businesses, like we're getting into like frameworks that we agree to live under. So when we talk about businesses, we have to like presuppose like an economic organization. And for businesses to exist, we usually have to presuppose some body of government to like defend those businesses and defend the economic organization of those businesses. So when you're talking about like defending like large businesses from large corporations, we kind of have to get into like what are the laws that we've agreed about there. But when you're talking about like individual attacks against a person, that can be done like on more of a moral basis, like irrelevant of any kind of like larger organization of government.
But the thing, you can interfere, right? You can interfere by using your massive wealth, beneficial government benefits, other things as well. You know, it's like I feel like you're being inconsistent in your position here because you're dismissing my hypothetical as not analogous, and I think it is analogous. I think a big business could go into a town intentionally with the intent of scooping up all the business, fuck all the other businesses. If they all close, fuck them. So by your logic, I think you would have to admit that it would be okay for someone to go and kill the CEO.
There's a huge difference between indirect harm caused via competition versus somebody like intentionally attacking you. Like if I were to go by your logic, that means that literally anytime anybody outcompetes anybody at anything ever, you can attack and kill them. So for instance,
that's why your analogy doesn't work.
No,
that's not true at all. If you got second place at a karate competition, you can't murder the first place guy because he interfered with your ability to get first place. That was like through fair competition. Like as a society, we've decided like this is like fair competition. Like you can compete in these ways. That's way different than somebody launching like a pointed individual attack at you that aggresses against you.
All right, Steve,
Wait,
you hold on, Steve. You launch a very successful wicker basket business, and all of a sudden one day you get into a fight with the guy who provides your wicker, and he says, fuck you, Steve, I ain't selling you shit, and you can't buy it anywhere else. This is the only wicker supplier is. You're going to go out of business. Can you kill the wicker supplier at that point? He's targeting you. He doesn't like you.
Do we understand there's a difference between like negative versus positive rights, or do we understand there's a difference between like doing something and not?
I'm actually confused. I'm a fan. I'm confused. I'm confused.
Like, we understand there's like a difference between like I'm no longer going to provide you with something versus I'm going to do something to you. Do we all think that's morally equivalent, or because these are totally different things? Like,
hey, we're getting real into the meta here, but that is doing the same as not doing. If I choose not to sell you anything anymore,
hold on. Okay, we got to be razor clear. It's not doing the same. It's bringing about a similar effect. Two different things that bring about a similar effect, though, if one is a positive versus a negative action, are two entirely different moral quandaries. They're two totally different things.
Okay. So for Dan's example,
wait. Other people got to be let in. So I want Pixie has something she wants to add, and then Wake the Beast. Wake the Beast has something. I love to hear from him. Pixie, please.
I kind of lost track for a second at the end there. But if we're talking about like fair competition, I was going to bring up like, well, what about like monopolies who kind of ruined this whole idea?
Hate to interrupt this riveting conversation. But my roommate just came back from a walk, and they brought me a newspaper thinking I might like it. Look who it's by. It's the Epoch Times. It's the Epoch Times. What the fuck? Why would they think I would like this? Damn, they must have saw my defensive property position, eh?
Competition and purposely undercuts their prices to fuck over the small business competitor who cannot compete.
Monopolies are bad. That's why they're supposed to be illegal. That's why we should have government action to arbitrate against them.
Yeah, right? But we would still say like, yeah, exactly. We should have government action to go against them. But let's say the government is not following through their end of the deal, right? They're not cutting down these monopolies. They're not fighting against them. Would that then make it ethical? But then if you've
exhausted all other options, I guess if you've gotten like the city council together and you've gotten people to boycott, you've gotten everything else, you've exhausted every possible thing, then I guess maybe down that road. But we're talking about like business versus business. Like there's a whole bunch of other options you've exhausted. That's way different than somebody like lighting your business on fire.
Yeah, but see, this is where the problem comes in. It's because it's this thing that like if you're going to make the argument that no, we're only discussing morals, the problem with that is that most of the time the moral obligations are tied to our legal obligations. For example, right, let me give you an example. So me as an individual, say I feel very confident in my driving ability. I am, and so then I decide that I want to drive my car 95 miles an hour. Now that's perfectly fine, and it would be really hard for you to be able to say, man, you were being negligent. If I have good control of my car, I've never been in an accident, like so on and so forth. Like it's like, okay, it's hard to make that claim. But the second the law legally becomes that the speed limit is 70, once I go that 20 miles over, that it's an arbitrary thing, but that thing becomes now something that's morally wrong. And if I kill people in that area, then you would be able to make the argument like, yeah, dude, you were being negligent, and that's how you end up doing that, because the law was clearly designed with the idea in mind that that this is what's reasonable. So in the same sense, the law in that case informs the moral argument. Like
this is the whole reason why I'm completely opposed to all forms of traffic laws, and I don't think you should get a license if you need a sign to tell you what speed limit you should drive.
We can end this right here. If you have an internet service provider and they decide that they're going to continually not fix the nodes in your neighborhood, and you're getting bad service, and you've called and they don't do it, is it reasonable to go?
There's a difference between a positive and a negative action, man. If the company was coming out and they were to destroy the line, then maybe, yeah. But if they're just not servicing the line, I feel like maybe we need to visit, like, there's a fundamental difference between somebody doing something and somebody not doing something.
Listen. I've got something to ask you, okay? Right. So, Destiny, right? Let's say, okay, you think there should be government regulation to prevent this stuff from happening. Yep, fair enough. Agree with you, yeah? Let's say that the government intervention or whatever is insufficient, and this small business is getting absolutely destroyed, decimated, wrecked by Walmart being next door to them, right? There's no other option. Everything else has been exhausted, right? There's literally nothing else they can do. The only thing that is going to stop them from doing this is by killing the CEO of this company. Would they be morally justified to do it?
No, because it's not considered wrong for somebody to open a business. It is considered wrong for somebody to torture fucking property. These are two totally different things.
But the thing is, no, listen, wait, listen, right? Okay. Walmart definitely engage in like legal practices, right? But the thing is, like from a moral perspective, they intentionally have policies in place that are designed to undercut businesses. Like, for example, they'll go into a town, they'll offer all of their products for a lower price, right? So that the business will be massively affected by it. The business goes bust, and then bang, Walmart put the prices up, they're good to go. To put it very simply, right? Like they engage in really shitty behavior that I would say, although it's not as bad as burning down the property, it's still fucking shit. Do you see what I mean? Like I feel like you're being ridiculously inconsistent here. And listen, Comrade Harkdan has also raised some fantastic points that I don't feel you sufficiently answered.
I don't think so as well.
We can't tell if I'm being controlled right now. No, do you think there's a difference between walking by a pool and seeing somebody drowning versus holding somebody's neck underneath the pool until they think there's a difference?
If you go into a bathroom and someone is drowning in the
bathtub, I will start muting people. All right, one at a time. Chad, finish your point.
I would argue that Walmart engaging in this sort of behavior, whilst it's not as bad as fucking chucking a Molotov cocktail at the building, there is some equivalence there. If they're intentionally going out of their way to undercut the business, to absolutely destroy them, I would say that there's not that much difference between a protester going and burning the property down. And I think it's quite interesting, Destiny, right? That you're happy to go and bat for capital, okay?
Oh my God, you're so retarded. Holy shit.
Look, listen, that's a bit out of order, but whatever. Listen, it's true. You are. You're going out to bat for capital.
I'm not batting for capital.
You are because
no,
you're
I'm
defending.
not.
No, listen. Okay, you're defending what the fucking Walmart are doing and acting like, oh, that's okay because it's fucking legal.
Just want to make very clear, I disavow the use of that word.
The difference between attacking somebody's property versus outcompeting them as a fucking business. The problem is that you're looking at the effects of an action, and you're okay. Sorry, because this conversation is blowing my fucking mind into a million pieces. Wait, you're saying that you're looking at the effects of actions, and you're saying, well, if the effect is same, then the morality of the action is the same. This is the most brain dead philosophy 101 consequentialist dumbfuck argument I've ever heard in my life. Just because the effects of two things are the same doesn't mean that the morality of the actual actions themselves are the same.
Hey, look, you can say a lot of things about my debate tactics, but I have yet to use the R word on stream and will not use it. If that's not subworthy, I don't know what is. Hey, Twitch Prime for no use of slurs.
Moral culpability as somebody that goes out and like somebody shoots their tire and then they swerve and they crash and they kill a family. Just because the effect is the same, well, the families died in the same in the both ends, doesn't mean that the actions themselves are similar. This is like obvious.
If someone jumps
I want to. Wait to Beast. Wait, hold on. Wait to Beast. Do you have anything to say? You've been waiting so long.
If at all possible, I'd like to move the conversation into a bit of fresh territory. If you ever have to kill someone, whether it's justified or not, there are other things you should worry about in addition to the legal ramifications that I think might supersede whether or not you go to court or whether or not you go to jail. And it's the fact that everyone that can be shot or killed has people who care about them and who love them. So if you have to kill a person, remember, you've just made about 1,000 enemies. Now, in the ancient world, the way that they handled this was they built cities of refuge, so that if you ever killed anyone, you could flee to the city and be safe from retribution from their friends and family until they were deceased. But I do want to elaborate a little bit more in terms of something I heard Fanatic and LCTRfan say about establishing how much force is necessary. Generally, the idea when it comes to self-defense law is this: you may use the minimum amount of force necessary to safely resolve a situation. Because what's going to get you convicted is not going to be the law. It's going to be your inability to convince a jury of 12 strangers that if they were in the same situation as you, they would have reacted the same way. So your focus should be, how do I convince 12 strangers? Most people are opposed to violence, that if they were in the same situation I was, in their house chilling, and someone outside was trying to set fire, how can I convince them that they would do the same thing? And you need to focus on 4 things. I know we have a lawyer here on the panel. Mr. Fan, did I hear you right in your introduction? You are a lawyer, sir?
Yeah, but I don't really do criminal law, but okay. Yeah.
If so, feel free to step in and edify me if I misstep. The way it was explained to me by my grandmaster was IMOP. You have to be able to prove that the person had the intent to harm you, okay? The means to do so, right? If a person is sitting in a wheelchair and they say, I'm going to get up and stab you, This does not give you carte blanche because although they have the intent, they do not have the means to do so. Opportunity, which means they have to have access. And in the case where you do not have castle doctrine laws, preclusion, meaning you have to eliminate less lethal options before resorting immediately to deadly force. So getting some perspective in terms of what the expectation is going to be, the standard you're going to have to satisfy if you ever find yourself in criminal court, hopefully can help to elaborate in terms of what we really should be talking about, which is how persuasive you can be in justifying what you did.
Amazing.
Very well said. Very well said.
Okay, listen, Destiny, I've got a quick question for you, okay?
Wait,
What's up?
I just want to say
Oh,
something.
wait,
Guys.
I will let-
Oh, yeah, what's up, people?
Hold on, I didn't get to
Pixie
ask my
in.
damn question.
I will let Pixie in, and then we will let other people.
So
Dudes.
actually, this is really interesting to me because I view a lot of things through a consequentialist lens, and then the only time that I make an exception of intent is just, in my moral calculus saying, how likely is this going to happen again in the future? And the way that you can usually see that is intent. So, Destiny, the question I have for you is, do you think that that there's actually like a moral difference between a person who's not voting and a person who's like, I guess a person who's not voting and a person who is voting? Because that's the argument that I use when I'm talking to people who don't vote and who are saying like, oh, you know what? No, like not voting is okay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, no, like you are essentially casting a vote for Trump because like the end consequence is the fact that Biden will probably not get elected if you do not do an action.
Wait, do you expect me to disagree with it? Yeah, if you don't cast a vote, you're essentially endorsing the winner, basically.
Okay, so I guess like I'm trying to understand like where you draw the line or how you think about this, because I don't understand the whole idea of like inaction and action are fundamentally different things. But then to say like, oh no, in this case it is like the same thing. Does that make sense?
I understand what you're saying, but voting and not voting are two. The reason why that's a different outcome is because something is always going to happen at the end of an election, whether you vote or don't vote. Like not casting a vote is a form of participation. Non-participation is a form of participation. For this to be more equivalent, I'm trying to spin up to think of an analogy, would be the difference between like letting a guy go burn down a business versus like burning down a business yourself. Like that would be more equivalent to voting or not voting versus like doing something that by proxy damages a business versus doing it directly. Like I would say that's a closer equivalent to where I would say like if you see a guy with a Molotov cocktail and he's holding it and he's like, hey, can I borrow a lighter? And you're like, oh, sure, here you go. And he lights it and then he goes and burns something else. That's the same thing as voting or not voting. But that's way different than I do an action that's beneficial for me, that's not directly attacking somebody, but they're indirectly harmed by it. Those two things are morally far different from each other. Okay. Because in one, you have an outcome that's always going to happen, for instance, the vote. And then in the other, you're doing something that's like external to the situation. Yeah.
Harkdan, and then Chud.
Okay.
Oh, we're so far away from where I wanted to be here, but I'll try to take it back a few steps here. I don't even know if it's worth going back now. I feel bad taking it back, but you know what, Steven, I have two.
Go on, Harkdan, do it.
Well, I have two
Just do it.
To really
Do
get
it.
to the axiom.
Do it. He's wasting time.
So the first question, and let me go ahead and throw both of these out because you've heard these before. You walk past a room and there's a person drowning in a bathtub. They're gonna die. Is it murder if you do nothing? That's the first one. And the second one, someone jumps out a window, okay, and they're going down. They're gonna hit the concrete, and you want them dead, okay? If you shoot them on the way down and hit them, they're gonna die anyways. Is that murder? And this kind of, this ties into your whole like, doesn't matter if they're targeting you versus not. So let's throw those out here.
So so this sounds like a trick question because you're presenting a false dichotomy and saying that I have to say that like one is right or one is wrong. But what I could do is I could say that both of them are wrong, but they're different types of wrongs. So for instance, in the bathtub analogy, let's say that I walk into a room and I want to kill somebody, but they're already drowning in the bathtub, so I don't save them, right? Is that wrong to not save the person? Like I had the intention to kill them? Yeah, of course that's wrong. But that's fundamentally different than walking in and actually drowning someone yourself. If I walk by a pool, 2-year-old
even though the result is the same, even though you wanted to kill that person.
Correct. Even though the result is the same, it's totally different. And we should all agree with this, and I'll even appeal to goddamn intuition. If you walk to a pool, you see a 2-year-old drowning, and you don't step in and save him, is fundamentally different than going to a pool and drowning 2-year-olds.
Walking to the pool with the intention of killing that 2-year-old as well.
Sure.
That's the important part.
Sure. Even if you walked with the intention to do it, these are still fundamentally different things.
I honestly don't understand why. I don't mean to be 2-head or 3-head. I don't like.
Both of them are bad. Okay, so the reason why we don't understand is because we're thinking like, wait, are you saying one is bad and one isn't? Both of them are bad, but they're clearly fundamentally different things. There's a whole article you can read on the plato.stanford.edu on the difference between doing and allowing harm. Philosophers debate this all the time. You might even disagree with me, and that's fine. You can disagree with me.
But we would say both are things that we shouldn't do, right? Because
sure, we could. Yes, we absolutely could. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, just
sure.
Clear.
Much the same that we could say maybe large businesses shouldn't go into small towns and overthrow them via monopoly power. We could say that we shouldn't do that, but we can also say that's wrong and we shouldn't do that. But that's fundamentally different than torching somebody's property. We can say it's all wrong, but they're still very different things. Much the same way that doing versus allowing harm, they can both be wrong, but they're still fundamentally different things.
And really quickly, if you could sum it up really quick, Destiny, what is the fundamental difference?
Well, the fundamental
between the guy that wants to like intentionally target a specific business and like sink them like financially through the law, and then the guy that decides to I'm just going to light that business on fire. What's the fundamental difference?
It would super depend on the paradigm through which we analyze it. So if we're looking at the morality of the individual actors, in one case, the fundamental difference would be a person is trying to cause pointed harm towards an individual by means of like aggressive actions towards that individual. And another one, a person is just competing in an economic system and through an external behavior or through something external to their behavior, they cause harm to another person.
No, it didn't have to be. It didn't have to be, right? Like, because like the business can decide, like, this guy has a monopoly, and I know that I can take over this monopoly if I 100% target specifically him. It's not just an external thing of like, I'm just doing my own business, and my business happens to be good, and we'll just see the whatever. I'm literally going to target your business. I'm going to sell exactly the product you sell. I'm going to undercut everything that you're doing, and therefore, at the end of the result, you're going to go out of business, and then that allows me to just go ahead and do whatever I want.
Yeah, but again,
they're both targeted and pointed.
We can recognize that both could be wrong, but they're different types of wrongs. So for instance, if I were to ask a vegan, is it okay to kill an animal because you just want to torture it? And is it okay to kill an animal for food? A vegan should say both of those are wrong, but they'll still recognize a substantial difference between the hunter that hunts for food versus the person that just skins an animal alive because they get pleasure out of the torturing of the animal. Even though both actions are wrong, they're fundamentally different because they're different types of actions. In one case, a person is running a business, and by that thing, they happen to destroy a small business because they're trying to capture more market share, blah, blah, blah. But in the other case, a person is specifically attacking an individual trying to destroy their business.
So,
in both cases, they're attacking and trying to store their business.
Okay, listen, right. Look, Destiny. I didn't want to make this a Destiny show, but look, you've managed to do that already. So you're
the ones speaking of absurd hypotheticals. You guys are the ones that are getting into the fucking absurd philosophical arguments. But
I've got another one for you. I've got another hypothetical.
I got one too. So wait for me next.
This is the last one, Destiny. Okay.
If someone recommends you a laptop and then it doesn't work, are you?
Stop. Let him answer.
Wait. That person might be expecting.
Listen, Harkdan, I'm surprised we've unified on this issue, but it is what it is. Okay, landlord leftist unity. Finally, we see it. Okay, here's the thing, right? So, let's say, so obviously you take issue with, someone obviously drowning a kid, right? If someone built a machine that drowned children, right, and the machine was drowning kids again and again and again, and the person that built it was like, well, I'm not drowning them, but they built the machine that's drowning kids. Would that be okay?
If they intentionally created a machine that had no other purpose beyond drowning kids, then it would be a morally abhorrent action for them to construct that machine. Yes.
Okay. Dylan,
okay.
Could you do better than that?
Yeah, here's my great one. Okay, so if it's talking about taking away livelihoods, what about that chatter who sent that video off to Twitch that got your partnership taken away? What about him, huh? Can you go after him?
I would argue that that's a different type of action because they felt like they were preventing harm in doing it. I would hope so, if I'm being charitable, right? For instance, if you step in front of somebody and you, let's say that, it's extremely absurd. Let's say that I kill somebody because I see him about to get into a car and go drunk drive on a freeway full of innocent kids that are walking around, right? That action is different than just killing somebody because I want to kill somebody, right? So if somebody was sending in a clip because they thought that I was doing some bullshit and I was encouraging violence or whatever, their goal is harm reduction. That's a different fundamental type of action than somebody who's just trying to get me banned because they hate me and they want to like deplatform me or whatever.
What if they did?
Okay, what if they did? What if they did though?
Yeah. Then I hope I don't in a video game. I don't know. Then that maybe that would be a different type of thing, but I don't want to explore that hypothetical here.
Oh, I don't want you to either. All right.
Holy shit.
Okay. Okay. So I want to do a closing statements on this topic. And maybe do a shortened third topic because I do want to respect other people's times here. I do thank you all for being here so far. Before we do that, so I just want to say to the audience, I do these types of streams all the time. on Mondays, I have these general panels. I invite big guests, as you see here, very glamorous people here spending their time with us, yelling at each other. That happens every Monday. So if that interests you, please give me a follow. On Tuesdays, I have an all-women's panel, right? It's a panel that's run by women, like the hosts are women. I don't talk at all, actually.
But the squad W, mute that one. Okay, guys, look, I'll do the same thing right now. Look, I also host panels. I host panels on Fridays at 8 p.m. EST. It's called the Hippie Dippy Podcast. Destiny's been on it before. Most of these people, except for Harkdan, the coward, who was afraid of my amazing podcast, been on it before. If you would all like to come on in the future, I'd appreciate that. Well, not come on it, but if you would all stop by, I'd appreciate that. And also, you know, if you want more content like this weekly, if you want some more content like this, I'd appreciate if you used your free Twitch Prime, which you get from your Amazon Prime account on this channel. I'd appreciate that. Gift a few subs, do some direct donos. I'd really appreciate it, buddies. Now back to it.
Others who come on and share their knowledge and their perspective there. So if that interests you, well, you know, you can give me a follow. All right. So please give me a follow for all that. And also, it's September. Once again, please. This is the time to support this channel. Only you can prevent forest fires and keep this channel up and running. So thank you for all the support you've given me so far. All the follows I've gotten, it's so amazing. Thank you for all of that. Okay, I want closing statements on this, and we'll do a short and third topic because I want to respect everyone's time. All right, Pixie.
Can I really quick, because I got a DM that's apparently important. When I was off, Tree of Logic wants you all to know that she's not actually permabanned. Apparently, she describes you as Lego head. I think she's talking about Dylan. So that she was permanently banned. She wants everybody to know that she is absolutely not permanently banned. She is unsuspended. It was only for 6 days. So, okay, there you go.
All right. Well, good to know.
Wow.
Tell Tree I said hi. Apparently, she's a fan. So that's the thing. All right. So Pixie, please.
Just giving closing statements.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was an interesting conversation. Maybe in the future we can deep dive more about negative rights or positive rights or whatever. Generally speaking, I think we ought to avoid violence when we can. And we should try to create institutions which can help repair or give back our property once we've lost it. Is this always possible? Of course not. When I'm speaking in shoulds, I'm speaking about the ideal world I like to create, not our current reality.
Okay, we'll go to Dylan, but thank you, anonymous gifter, for gifting a sub to Tree of Logic. Maybe she will come around here. Okay, Tree of Logic, welcome to the Worst Generation. Dylan.
Yo, if anybody wants to gift a sub in my chat to Tree of Logic, I greatly appreciate that. I know she's a longtime viewer of the channel, Tree. You know what? I'll take that Lego head thing with pride. At least I'm not going around calling people the N-word on Twitch, you know? At least I'm not doing that. But, next to that, I'm just gonna throw out there that, I'm a hippy dippy person. I'm just called the hippie. I got Twitch. I got, like, peace signs as, like, Twitch, sub badges. But I do fundamentally believe, due to like instances like I've seen of like around the world too, of how taking away of people's private property has also been used as a tool of oppression by governments. As another example, ethnic cleansing that has been done, forcing people from their homes and forcing them to relocate. It would be another example that I didn't really get to talk about. I wish I did. I just specifically bring up Kurdish minorities around the world and the effects they've gotten. But I maybe I'll talk about that next time or a separate time off stream. I do believe people should have the fundamental right to defend their property, but I think there has to be some scaling back on the idea that, of course, you can't just shoot somebody if they got a bag of chips. I think it has to be kind of somewhat proportional to the amount of damage someone is about to do to your livelihood, burning down the entirety of your business. If they're coming to your business armed, trying to do harm, then obviously that's a threat to you. That would be another example where I think that would be morally justifiable. And I think that's perfectly fine. That's about it.
Okay. LCTRfan.
I was just gonna say, Wake the Beast was right. This is something that you could think about hypotheticals all day long. The reality is that is why we have juries, because it's not easy to make decisions on hypotheticals with one or two facts thrown out. You have to kind of have the full story. And so, but the overall topic about using force to protect property, it sounded to me like basically everybody agrees that you can use force to protect property. And of course you can. That's what most Americans agree with. That's been longstanding basic morality beliefs and the law in the United States. The fact that the question was even answered.
Inja Khan, thank you so much for gifting a sub to Triologic. I appreciate it, buddy.
And now what type of force and when and how and stuff, that's why we have juries. So
okay. Harkdan?
Yeah, I'm not sure where to start. I mostly am just upset with kind of the response that I got out of Destiny for, I mean, like non-answers and like dancing around the question for what was obviously an edgy take that he was going to kill someone who was DDoSing him, and then giving similar examples and then backtracking. And
I'm not backtracking any.
I think that most of the audience sees through what you're doing. You don't believe that you should be killing someone who DDoSed you, and I think that's apparent by the fact that a lot of young people do stupid things. And now we're in this situation. You refuse to backtrack on your edgy statement, trying to support things that you can't support, and saying that it's like axiomatic morals this, and going to kill a 2-year-old is fine. Like, those are your words. So yeah, I don't know exactly where to go here. I mean, I guess we just have to move on and have a difference of opinions. That I don't think it's in that situation I wouldn't kill a 2-year-old. I understand that you would, but anyways, yeah, we can move on.
Okay. Don't worry, Destiny. You'll be the last one because everyone's going to be talking about you. So you'll be the last one and get the last word on that. All right. I'll go to Chudlogic next.
Okay, I mean, look, a few surprises on this panel. Me and Harkdan having some common ground on some of our perspectives was very interesting. I think I'm quite surprised to hear Destiny, have a position that essentially justifies a small business owner going and killing the CEO of a big company. But there we go. A life's full of surprises, I guess. I think, to be a bit more serious, that big companies definitely have policies in place that target small businesses and target their livelihoods. Whilst obviously it's not exactly the same as lighting the building on fire, I think that there's a very similar impact there, or there's a similar sort of process in place there. And I think to deny that is to be quite inconsistent. And yeah, I think that for me, I go back to my original point. My position hasn't changed. Lethal force is sometimes justified in situations where there's no other option. Every other option has been deployed. It doesn't work. I think eventually, unfortunately, because we live within the system we live in, people's material conditions are what they are. Unfortunately, it will eventually get to that. And yeah, I hope one day we live in a system where we don't have people's lives being destroyed because their shop was burnt down. And that's it.
Okay. And before anyone else, just want to say we got a scam train going. Thank you, everyone who's been contributing to that scam train. Let's keep it going.
I got something cocked and loaded right now, and I'm just waiting to fire it off. You just wait for it. Wait for it. I got something good ready.
Life is priceless. I believe it was Carl Sagan who said that the weak and strong nuclear force that holds our body together only acts on this matter for a little while, and then it's permanently dissipated for all of eternity. So it's worth defending. Property, on the other hand, not so much. You burn my house down, I can replace it. However, I consider my life to be my property. I consider my life to also be the property of my family, and vice versa. And for this, I will defend and fight. However, for most of us in America, we are never going to be victims of violence. The FBI has distributed information to us that shows that violent crime is on a 10-year decline. So fortunately for us, we will never have to act on most of what we're saying. However, if you find yourself in a situation where you have to use deadly force, I hope you don't hesitate.
Certainly. Wow. Gotta say, the support I'm getting through all these subs, it's amazing, guys. Thank you so much. This is absolutely amazing. I think we completed the hype train, level 5 hype train. Thank you so much. Okay. Yeah, it's really kind of you all. Thank you so much for doing that. All right, we'll go to Fanatic.
Shout out to Pisco95 on this one because he was kind of helping me frame a little bit of it. We had a conversation about it beforehand, but I really think it boils down to quote part of what he said. He said, and I agree with this 100%. He said it's really a question like the hypothetical that Destiny and I got down as far as like asking the people you exhausted all of your options, yada 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 yada. I mean, that's really just a question of institutional competency. And we like as people, like obviously we really can't assume that someone is guilty like in like all of these hypothetical situations about like burning down a house and all that stuff. Like we can't assume that, right? And the way we figure these things out is by typically using like the legal system, which is why I kept appealing to that. Like I think that's ultimately what matters. That's like our default for any time we're trying to decide whether someone is like punishable, whether someone is like guilty of like someone is someone should be killed or any of those things. The only exceptions to these are self-defense cases in which we feel like imminent danger requires you sometimes to act. So I think that's always what I'm going to appeal to. And I definitely understand like I don't want it to be said that I thought that the idea is that people should just be helpless in the case of like people destroying their property. I think direct property owners, I think they have the ability to defend their property, and and if things escalate such that they have to use deadly force, then like so be it. But ultimately, like I'm ultimately going to say that the best response would be to call the police. Sometimes the legal system absolutely fails people, and in those cases, I feel like eventually some people might have to do extra legal things, though I would literally never advocate for that to be like I would never advocate for people to do that, but it's reasonable that people would in certain situations.
Okay. And again, thank you all for the support. It's been absolutely fantastic. This has been amazing for me. Thank you so much. All right. Destiny.
Not all lives are created equal. When you decide that you want to attack somebody else's shit, you want to burn it down, even against threats of lethal force, you forfeit your right to life. Society only works because we all kind of have agreements about how we ought to act in society. One of those things that we agree on is that we all kind of like look out for each other's property and look out for each other's shit. If you have somebody that's decided that they want to throw away that agreement, that they think that they can just destroy your shit or blow your shit up or whatever, who knows what other contractual obligations this person is throwing away. Like their life is just not something that you have to be concerned with. Like at the end of the day, you just need to be concerned with the possession of your stuff. And yeah, I think I think that's a pretty clear cut, easy yes or no.
All right. Again, and to go off of Fanatic's point, shout out to Pisco95. He's been a great friend of this channel. He is a third-year law student, and he's turning it up over at his channel. So shout him out again in chat for everyone, so you can go find his channel. Please go give him a visit. All right. So we'll do a final topic, and we won't take too long on this because, again, I want to respect all of your time. The election is 50 days away. The U.S. is facing a number of different crises, including COVID-19, BLM protests, massive unemployment, and wildfires. How do these emergencies affect the presidential campaigns? We'll go again in order. Pixie, you go first.
Right, I'm sorry. How do I think the wildfires are going to affect the presidential campaigns?
BLM protests, COVID-19, all these different crises that the country is facing right now.
Honestly, okay, so I've been kind of avoiding polling data because polling data is frustrating. I feel like it gives people a false sense of confidence, and a lot of time it's not really conducted well, depending on like the poll you look at. So it's like really, I feel like it's not a good measure, generally speaking, especially if it's not being conducted well. I want to say I hope that this all looks badly on Trump's presidency, right? On his incompetence. Will it actually? I don't know. I think it's crazy that I saw the other day blaming fucking Biden for the riots that are happening when he's not even presidency. Like to me, it's mind baffling. So all I can say right now is I hope it reflects badly on Trump. Go out and vote, please go out and vote. That's it.
Okay, Dylan.
So, Destiny, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. Can you go talk to Tree of Logic in private and tell her about the private use of that word, maybe to help her out so she doesn't get banned next time?
No.
Let me keep going.
She's black. Can't she say it? Isn't that okay?
Apparently not.
No.
Apparently not.
Oh,
But when it comes to this, I think that there's definitely the crises have not helped Trump's reelection chances. I would think it's definitely helped Biden's. When you talk about the economy, for example, like Trump was really like promoting, and specifically like black unemployment all-time low, this unemployment all-time low, unemployment's great, unemployment's wonderful. And then, of course, during election season, it was literally the worst possible time for unemployment to skyrocket. That obviously isn't helping him anymore. The economy is not doing wonderful. Now you can talk about recovery efforts, but we got 50 days till election. There's not much he can do to the the economy to really sell that pitch to the American people that, hey, the economy's doing great. I mean, right now, like, the economy's not doing wonderful, but it was doing great, and we'll bring it back to great. It's not really going to sell. When we talk about the wildfires going on, I don't think this is really going to sell extremely well in the Midwest. It might, I don't know, but I don't think, I do think when it comes to the climate change issue, this is going to be something that is trumpeted by the left as another instance of climate change gone awry. The fact that this was a fire that was started, but then the environment around it was able to help produce it, make it worse because of general like increasing temperatures. That's not going to help Trump. I think the COVID generally, the majority of American people do not think he's held it well. That's not going to help Trump. The only thing that could really possibly help him is when it comes to the giant protest movement and the 7% of protests that turn into riots. It's just weird, like the idea that he since he can't use the economy anymore, he has to go into law and order kind of binge right now. So, but if you look at any other society, like in Lebanon, when rioting happens, you kind of blame it on the government for them not dealing with the social issues that created the situation. If rioting happens in Hong Kong, it's the same thing. It falls at the feet of Carrie Lam. If it happens in Bolivia, if it happens in Haiti, if it happens in Chile, if it happens in any place in the world, it usually falls on the back of the government for them not attending to a social issue, and that's why that the social contract's been broken to such an extent, or there's been such a pressure cooker to the point where there's a legitimate part of the population that think that this is their only option. But Trump is, as always, a really good media man, a really good spin doctor, and he's spinned himself as the law and order president at the same time while he breaks international law and threatens nations with war crimes and breaks domestic law at the same time. But he's going to sell himself as the law and order president, and he seems to be succeeding in that. So this might end up somewhat helping him.
Okay. LCTRfan.
Well, I think what's interesting about the last topic is that it directly relates to the presidential campaign. I mean, it's pretty obvious that the BLM protests and the Antifa rioting and everything going on in Portland is directly related to the 2020 campaign. If you actually go to Google Trends and look through like Black Lives Matter or BLM, Google Trends clearly shows that BLM trends during presidential campaign years. And so the rioting and the looting has definitely helped Trump. I mean, Joe Biden refused to condemn the violent rioting and looting for months and months. And of course, they never said anything about mass gathering, thousands and thousands of leftists marching in phalanxes, screaming at the top of their lungs for days and days and days and months in a row, every day in and day out, in the middle of a pandemic. And the public health officials and the Democrats and the media saying, oh no, well, this is a public health issue too, so the protests are okay. They totally cost themselves any shred of legitimacy or credibility they had left. So I think the rioting and the looting has been a huge help to Trump. It was so bad that Joe Biden even finally had to come out and say, yeah, violent rioting is bad. Violent rioting is bad. And any Democrat that actually like cares about trying to win this election should have been so mad at the violent rioters and the people protesting in the middle of a pandemic, because it really, really, really hurt Biden. And of course, Biden is, held hostage basically by the far left. He couldn't speak out against it because they would have turned their attacks on him. And so Biden was in a really bad spot until he finally caved, and he finally came out and said, yeah, I'm against the violent rioting. So that's been a huge benefit to Trump. One of the greatest things Trump has going for him this year is how insane the left is. The fire's got nothing to do with climate change. It started by people and bad forest management in California. And Trump has done a great job on coronavirus. So I'm pretty confident Trump is going to win.
All right, so LCTRfan, once again, you give me endless entertainment. I'm so happy that you're here. Honestly, that's sincere. Okay, Destiny.
Almost every single one of these issues is probably hurting Trump in the election, save for the riots. But based on the polling that I've seen, it doesn't seem like that's had negative impacts on Biden. I know that he came out and he made statements against it, probably because they just want to head off that having any negative impacts on him. I don't think a few torch car dealerships are going to be enough to swing the public opinion in favor of Trump after the horrific handling of COVID-19, on top of a million other things. But I think that this election will basically be a referendum on Trump's handling of the coronavirus.
Okay. Dan?
So I feel like Biden is very much so ahead. I think that it's going to be a significant win for Biden at this point from everything I've seen. I know that there's some that are on the very far left saying they're not going to vote. I think that that's very dangerous. And I hope that they do. And the reasoning that I give more so for this is that it's no longer let me say this. My belief is that if Trump loses, that it will throw America into chaos and he won't give up power.
Justin R. Young, thank you so much for the host. I was going to raid into you once this is done. Damn, you kind of foiled my plans there.
It's not how these events are affecting the things, but the fact that it's not enough for Democrats to win overall. They have to have a landslide victory against Trump is the only way that we can go there. And that means that on election night itself, Democrats have to win. And that doesn't seem like that's going to happen right now because mostly Democrats typically vote by mail. So it could very well be on the election night that Trump shows that he's winning, that he's won key states like, Pennsylvania and Florida and things like that because of people who have voted in person and those votes have come in. If that happens, he's probably going to just declare a victory at that point. And then if any additional mail-in votes come in later at that point that say that, hey, no, Joe Biden is the winner, it's going to be completely contested. It's going to be a shit show. And the president has the absolute enormous amount of power to do 1,000,001 things to essentially not only drag it on, but continue to skew things in his favor. And you can kind of just look at how that all played out in 2000 with Bush. So, yeah, I would say, irrelevant to how things are affecting, if Democrats want to actually take the presidency, it's not enough to win. You have to win in a fucking landslide, and you have to win on a landslide on election day. That means, and that's going to be hard to do. And, right now, as I said, Joe Biden is up by like 8 points nationally. It's got to be more than that if you really actually want to take it. And it's a challenge, but I think that's what we need to see because otherwise I am a very firm believer that Trump will not give up power. And will claim fraud and mail in whatever. And, who knows what's going to be the case, but I don't think he'll give up power unless he is just beaten enormously as a result of that. So, yeah.
Okay. Chud?
Okay, so one of the problems, like engaging with Trump conservatives on this issue, is it seems like their only desire is to have Trump's anus stitched to their mouth so they can basically eat his shit. That is the level of worship and fandom that Trump has built around himself. And I would say that their opinions are normally less than worthless because they've developed this weird parasocial relationship with the president. Absolutely unhinged and ridiculous to me. I think the reality of the situation is, it's funny that they try and lay the blame at Biden. Trump has been in power for 4 years. The current state of America is solely at the feet of Trump. It is as simple as that. And I think that, it's fantasy land to think that like Trump is fucking winning out of all of this when he's got policies in place and beliefs. Like, for example, his cabinet doesn't take climate change seriously. I've got my criticisms of DNC and Joe Biden, but at the very least, Joe Biden is going to come into office and take climate change seriously and put policies in place that are going to address that, as one example. So I think it's absolutely deluded and unhinged to, take this position with Trump. One final point, Trump is absolutely terrified of a fair election. That is proven by the way in which he has gone about trying to dismantle the United States Postal Service. And that's it.
Okay. Fanatic.
Whew. So, I don't know. For me, like most of my, the primary music that I do is country. And what I've discovered is that like most of the circles that we end up playing are like really, really Republican circles, even though I'm in Southern California. And what I found is that like there's literally nothing that will affect his base. So COVID-19 happening, the way the protest is happening, literally none of it is going to be harmful to Trump in any way, shape, or form among his base. The only thing that I'm hoping that could possibly happen as a result of like everything that's going on, with that it would possibly galvanize people to actually go out and vote. Like I think the numbers already show that like Democrats outnumber Republicans like pretty heavily. The problem is just that Republicans are more of the voting age, and the elder generations are a little bit more conservative, and so then they're more likely to vote, which is what even helps it to be even remotely close to even. If younger people would if all voting age people voted, they would lose by a landslide in a large. So I'm thinking maybe, hopefully, just because of everything being shut down and the crazy unemployment, which seems that it's affecting largely, minorities, which tend to be more Democrat, that maybe that might affect the vote and help things to maybe skew on the other side. But in reality, I don't think that it's going to be any shift in ideological change, right? Like, I feel like maybe his response to COVID might have highlighted some of his ineptitude. Maybe his response to the civil unrest from the protests might have highlighted some of his ineptitude. But these are things that most people were already decided on, and I didn't see that these things largely changed people's minds. Like, you know what? Now that I've seen this, I finally recognize who Trump is. I feel like we already kind of knew. And then one other thing that people were talking about is whether or not the protests were like affecting, the left and people's view of the left. We saw pretty large, like, worldwide support of the protest, and from day one there had been some violence present in those protests. So the idea that the presence of violent protests somehow really skewed people away from the protests is just unfounded. And furthermore, the FBI already came forward and said that a large proportion of the violent protests were started by Antifa and white nationalist accelerationists who were taking advantage of the protest. These were from statements from the FBI themselves. So I don't think that that's really been the protests or even the violent protests have been a crazy shift away from support for the police reform. We've seen large-scale reform like never before in my lifetime or that of even my grandmother's. It's pretty freaking crazy. Great time to be alive.
Country music, amazing. Did not expect that. Had no idea. I haven't actually listened to your music. Now I'm actually more curious about that. So yeah, everyone check out Fanatic's music. All right. So next, Wick the Beast.
Yes, these tragedies and emergencies make this election incredibly easy for both sides. There are advantages. We have to remember something about democratic elections. They are won by two factors: corporate sponsorship and propaganda. If you want to be the winner of a democratic election, simply be on the television more often than your competitor, and you will get the votes. So what does this mean? It means that if you ask a Trump supporter or a Joe Biden supporter, they will tell you that they know who these men are. But in reality, how much can you know about a man you've never shaken hands with? How much can you know about a man whose home you've never sat in? You've never seen Trump or Biden interact with his kids when the cameras are off, never shared a meal with him. But yet we're drenched in this propaganda that lets us think that we know these individuals. But 101 of political science is never waste a tragedy, which means typically you'd have to invent one. But 2020 has given us plenty. It's given us COVID-19. It's given us the protests. The protests are continuing. And it also gave us the wildfires here in California. Going outside in California, there's a haze of orange all over everything. And the air is a lot heavier here. It provides perfect cover for Donald Trump to say things, to make a case for why he needs to be here for 4 more years. I'm going to put an end to COVID. I'm going to be the solution. And it also allows cover for other individuals like Joe Biden to make nonsensical statements such as, if you're having a problem deciding whether or not you're for me, then you're not black. Like, can you imagine the establishment's candidate making that statement when there's no cover provided by COVID-19? We wouldn't be so forgiving of him because the emphasis would be on what he said. Now there's an infinite cloud of miasma and confusion we can point to delay a true evaluation of their character and move further away from the goal.
All right, go ahead.
Well, I find it funny that Dan thinks Biden is winning, even though Biden's 6 points lower than where Hillary Clinton was at the same point. And then Chudlogic claiming that stuff that's going on in Democrat cities, done by Democrats, in cities that have been run by Democrats, in states run by Democrats, and Democrat perpetrators is somehow Trump's fault is also pretty rich.
It's funny because if we go back to like the Rodney King beating and we go back to the murder of Latasha Harling, we actually had the same exact attorney general them. It was also William Barr. Most people don't know this. And when we talk about the amount of power like the Trump administration could actually have when it comes to police reform, I mean, what actual movements has he been pushing his party when it comes to, you know, the Republican Party generally, or to do on the federal level? I haven't seen much from him on that front.
Policing
really.
is a local issue. Policing is a local issue.
Policing is local, but it also the federal government has immense influence. I mean, why do we have an attorney general if not partially for issues like this?
Federal law enforcement. Policing is local.
Okay, and what about federal law enforcement? Has he made about huge claims on how we should reform federal law enforcement too? I mean, even though he does have impact on the local level, federal law enforcement. And again, even if it is even if it is a local issue, do you not also acknowledge the fact that he's the president of the United States with a huge ass platform to get up there and say, "Hey, Republicans in my party, here's some amazing reforms you should do in your local thing." He has a huge platform. Why isn't he doing this? Why isn't he being that voice for the powerless?
He is. He's called for increasing funding to police.
To do what?
To give the hire so they can hire more police officers and do more.
How would hiring more cops solve the issue?
Well, it really wouldn't. You need to get rid of the local politicians, and Trump has been also pretty strong about calling out the Democrat local politicians, which would be the number one way to solve it.
So there's nothing wrong with what the Republicans are doing surrounding police reform. It's just the Democrats. So there's nothing he can say to his own party.
All of the failures in policing have happened with Democrats in control.
Well, last time I checked, William Barr at the same time during the Rodney King. It's funny that it's almost comical, the fact that William Barr was the same attorney general during the Rodney King shootings, and he had the same exact reaction then to do absolutely fucking nothing as he's doing now. It's almost like it suits him to do absolutely nothing because he's fine with the state of affairs. He's fine with how policing is conducted in this country. And the only response I'm hearing right now is just give the cops more police on the streets. How does that solve the issue?
Well, no, there've been calls for more funding and stuff like that, but really, I mean, the idea that our policing is this horribly broken system in the United States is actually wrong. If leftists actually cared about good policing, they'd be focused on what's going on around the world, and they'd be holding up the United States as a shining example of what good, fair, and just policing looks like.
So the thing is, this is really weird because I actually I don't know if anybody's been following what's happening in Belarus right now with Alexander Lukashenko and in blackbacking people off the street. But many of the same rhetoric used by Alexander Lukashenko for years is the exact same rhetoric I'm seeing from the current president of the United States. Alexander Lukashenko would basically use examples of either a few protesters, and some people would say that the government actually sent people into the protests to smash the windows. Those are allegations, that's unproved. But there would be a busting up of a window or something along that sort. And then he would use the opportunity to say, look at the opposition. They're terrorists. They're going to terrorize us on their streets. And this is also tied. That word in Belarus is extremely dangerous due to the fact of a certain bombing that happened in a metro that is connected directly to that. We could maybe point to 9/11 on why the word terrorist has a lot of weight. And him targeting protesters in that manner is the exact same dialogue I'm starting to see with Donald Trump. Antifa, terrorist, Black Lives Matter, terrorist, Marxist terrorist organization. The same type of rhetoric being used to demonize them. I mean, it's almost like, the Republican Party is becoming the party of big government, where we can use these demonizing language to just completely make it so it'd be socially acceptable to use whatever amount of force possible against protesters, possibly even black bagging them off the street like Lukashenko is doing right now on the streets of Belarus.
So what do you call somebody that is engaging in violence to achieve political ends?
We have a word for it. It's called rioter. The people who take bricks and throw it through a window, we used this word for decades. Rioter. The word terrorist is completely different. It has been used for decades differently in American discourse. We think of the people flying planes into the tower and killing 3 million people. We think of ISIS, this group that slaved Yazidi girls, right? And slaughtered thousands, ethnic cleansing that this organization did. Al-Qaeda, and just think that's at all comparable to the Black Lives Matter. It's nothing but the purposeful demonizing of another political side, so that you can have more authority down the line to be more violent or more aggressive towards them, like black bagging them as an example.
I don't know. I think they've done a pretty good job of demonizing themselves, to be honest with you.
You don't think calling your political opposition terrorist? I mean, I
don't know. Globally, that doesn't seem to be the case. Globally, it doesn't seem to be the case, right? Because we saw large-scale riots, some of the largest we've ever experienced in our entire lifetime, immediately after the protest, even in spite of the violent protests. So it sounds to me like we've obviously seen larger police reform than has ever happened in my lifetime, your mother's lifetime. So for generations, some of the largest-scale police reform has happened as a result of this. To say that these two are not related is ridiculous. So obviously it sounds like things haven't been painted so direly as you're talking about, except for to the base who might be, I'm not going to, whatever. So except for to the base that already were in disagreement with these people, but some of these people, literally nothing can change them. So yeah, I don't think there's any data to support what you're talking about. And also,
pretty
one
awesome
last thing. Hold on, one last thing. And you also mentioned something about like how policing is done at a local level. Sure, and that's absolutely true. However, there are plenty of ways that the federal government has in the past and can continue to incentivize better reaction from police officers. We can get rid of qualified immunity, which was something that was proposed by the House. There's also they can change the way some of their fundings. I think at one point they suggested that they would only allow funding if they had what was it called? The pattern of practice investigations, that the Department of Justice had to be allowed to perform pattern of practice investigations in order for them to maintain their funding. There are several ways that the federal government can influence state and local policing. So because they still receive plenty of funding from the police officers. So yeah, there's plenty of influence to be had from the federal level. It's not so distinct.
Okay. I want Pixie One to jump in before then with the Beast.
Yeah, I just wanted to say about like the whole example of the United States being a shining beacon on police. I definitely don't agree with that. If anything, like the police in the United States are not really properly trained in many states. They're not taught de-escalation tactics. A lot of them have even come out and said, yeah, like we're actually taught to escalate, not de-escalate. So I don't know where that comes from. I think when it comes to the justice system, what is it? I believe the United States holds like 25% of the world's prisoners. Despite having a much smaller population. I also think it's ridiculous some of the laws that we have currently in place that basically effectively send people to jail over what I would even call self-harm, over drugs, really. Or even if it's not some harmful, let's say like self-medicating, let's say marijuana, I still think it's ridiculous that people are thrown to jail for years upon years over something like that. So yeah, I think also to add on to all of this, the United States doesn't have a rehabilitation system. We have a punishment system, which effectively induces like high rates of recidivism, and it doesn't really effectively accomplish anything. So I think the United States has a lot to work on when it comes to its police force and its justice system, and it should not be held as a beacon across the world of what to do.
Well, if those are your concerns, you got to be giving a lot of credit to the Trump administration for both the criminal justice reform and the First Step Act, both things which done more than any president to address some of those issues you just talked about.
I mean, there are, what is it? You're referring to what I think you're referring to, because I remember like him signing a law a while ago talking about like reducing sentences. Yeah, like I agree with that. However, I think we have to take it a step further. Like I think that we're currently not doing nearly enough to change how things are going. So yeah.
With the Beast, and then Chud if he wants to say something.
I'd like to point out that both your Democratic and Republican parties have been made hollow by the big tent paradox. You know, what is the purpose or the manifest function of a political party? It's to get their candidates elected. And how do political parties do that? By choosing key topics and issues and stances to appeal to a particular base. But it makes you wonder, if a political party needs votes, how do they expand their membership while holding true to those core ideas that were so central to their identity? The answer is they can't. So the larger your political party grows, the more watered down the message gets, because they're moving further and further away from their identity for the sake of appealing to a larger audience. It's to the point now that the only difference between your Democratic and Republican parties is the fact that they represent opposing networks of wealthy individuals and corporate interests. This is not 1776. Men do not fight on the battlefield for ideas and ideology. Politicians aren't fighting for that either. What they're fighting for is the perpetuation of a system or the introduction of such where they have an infinite advantage over you, both they and their friends.
Just real quick, the idea that like the parties only represent corporate interests is just not true. It's just not borne out anywhere. The idea that like there's plenty of issues that these parties fight over, like things like abortion, that corporate interest just has absolutely no interest in. And when you do polling amongst like highly wealthy individuals and you look at things like, are you in favor of progressive taxation? Like overwhelmingly, like the most wealthy individuals tend to support these types of policies. The idea that parties become watered down also because of all the people involved in them, that's a positive thing. You don't want all the parties to be extremist. Like we have to at the end of the day, we have one functioning government, and the only way that it's supposed to function is by coming to compromises at the end. If anything, I would argue the fact that the parties today are so polarized is actually a detriment, and it hampers their ability to get anything at all done in government.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with that. And as an example, just take a look at Joe Biden and Donald Trump. They are put in front of us as opposites, but are they really that different?
Yes.
Donald Trump is married to a woman of his race. He had his children inside of his marriage. He lives in a very wealthy neighborhood. He's incredibly rich. He wants more money for his friends and his family and himself. Joe Biden, another individual, married to a member of his own race, a heterosexual relationship, wealthy, had his children in marriage. Fundamentally, they are the same.
What?
Their administration, first of all, whether or not they bear some similarities in their personal life has no bearing on whether or not their administrations or the policy points that they're going to push are going to be similar. They might both be heterosexual and marry people of the same race, but which I'm not even sure if that's true for Trump and his Eastern European wife or whatever. But like the idea that like their policies are going to be the same as a result of that is just not true.
So let me ask you this way: LCTRfan just got married. Congratulations, by the way. If I got married in a few years, right? And I also had like a white picket fence house. I had a dog named Fido, and all these things were similar, right? The only difference I would not be dating someone of a similar race, but let's change that. Let's say it was a white woman, but then now that I'm with a black woman, does that make me not part of the corporate elite? Like what? Like those all seems like personal attributes that have nothing to do with like the financial backing of who they are or the
fundamentals of who they are as a person.
Yeah, that just seems completely separate. Like me and LCTRfan are still on completely opposite sides of the political spectrum.
What you feel to be Donald Trump and Joe Biden to be as people is an illusion. You don't know them.
Yeah, no, but we know their policies. We know what their administration's point. I don't care about the individual. I care about what their administration is going to do. I'm not trying to have beers with a guy. I'm hoping he leads the country well or effectively.
Listen, I get frustrated with when lefties equivocate Biden and Trump because they're not the same. Okay, Biden is better than Trump. It's simple as that. Okay, but you're doing this absolutely unhinged and absurd equivocation because they're both heterosexual. They're somehow the same. Like you realize this is a totally absurd point, right? Can you accept how ridiculous the point you're making is?
All you're giving me is emotional ejaculate. You're just saying how ridiculous you think it is.
That's all Chud ever does.
Do you think that every heterosexual is the same that's married to another heterosexual of the same race?
No. What I'm saying is that if these two individuals were fundamentally that different, it would manifest in how they live their lives.
So you're saying that people that are wealthy, married to members of the same race, and are heterosexual are all fundamentally similar enough that their administrations would be essentially the same?
No, sir. What I'm saying is very specific. I'm saying that Joe Biden and Donald Trump are very similar when it comes to the ideas that I just put forward. The fact that they live their lives so similarly. You could say that they live their lives so similarly. They could really live in the same neighborhoods with really no issue whatsoever. And you know what? They probably do.
I do have a lot of similarities with Hitler when I think about it, actually.
No. I was going to say, listen, you can't be that reductive. If you're going to, boil it down to things that, apply to, literally 50% of Americans, not literally, but, how many people are married or heterosexually married and have wives of the same, ethnicity as them? This is ridiculous. That can't be the fundamentals of a person, especially when you're trying to evaluate, their efficacy as a politician. These things can't be further removed. You can't say, oh, well, because Beto O'Rourke is a homosexual, all of a sudden everything he does, that doesn't make any sense. Hypothetically, right? I'm just saying, when you're saying fundamentally, are you saying that?
I don't know why you had to use Beto O'Rourke as a hypothetical when Pete is actually gay.
As a fundamental person, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely not. I was using the sexuality and their family lives as an example of how similar they are. But we can use other examples too.
Listen.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Wait. Listen. Just to be clear, wait the beast. I'm not trying to intellectually ejaculate all over you, okay? I'm not trying to shoot thick ropes of my intellect into your face, just to be clear, okay? But you've got to accept that the argument that
you got to pay for that
is totally fucking false, okay? There's nothing there. You're saying words, but it's meaningless. It contributes nothing to the conversation, okay? And this is what you've done all evening. You step in. You're the one fucking self-sucking. You're the one shooting thick ropes of intellect into your own mouth here, my dude. Okay, because you're sat here making flowery statements that say fucking nothing, and it's infuriating. So I'm sorry if I'm getting emotional. Maybe say something that's actually meaningful.
Chud, do you know what an argument is? An argument is a series of statements, one of which is a conclusion, supported by the others, which are the premise. You're just giving me your emotional take.
Yeah, sit the fuck down, Chud.
Beta.
Okay, my dude. Listen, clearly you're the one with the fucking mega brain. You got the best five head takes. I submit to your intellect, okay? Maybe one day I can be as emotionally intelligent as you, and I can stop trying to shoot my thick ropes of intellectual ejaculate all over the place.
Well, like, I'm curious. So, like, fundamentally, do you think that Biden and Trump have the same opinion and approach to climate change?
No, because they
go ahead.
Go ahead. Please continue.
Do you think they have the same opinion and approach to like foreign policy?
No, because as I mentioned, the Democratic and Republican parties that they represent opposing networks of interests. Okay. So not both of these networks of interest are going to be for the same ideas and the same strategies.
Does it matter if they have
foreign policy?
Yeah, does it matter if they have relatively similar personal like values or personal like sexual leanings or whatever, if their platforms are meaningfully different on a policy level?
Say that one more time.
Does it matter if they share similarities in terms of family and sexuality if their policies are meaningfully different?
No. What matters to me is that they sit at the heads of two organizations that have been purchased and bought by corporate financing.
And why do we care about whether they're fundamentally the same or not? Why even bring that up then?
Well, the reason why is because that's how they're put to us in the public. They are offered to us as alternatives and opposites of each other. And I'm saying that if you examine them under a microscope and look at how they live their lives, a lot of those supposed differences evaporate.
Okay, Wake the Beast. I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying, like traditionally in American politics. But I think Donald Trump is the real exception. Donald Trump is the only president in certainly in modern times in a long time who was never in an elected office before. Donald Trump was a billionaire before he became president. Donald Trump is the least corrupt president we've ever had, and that's because he's not a part of the establishment, a part of the machine. He has no reason to be corrupt because he was already a billionaire before he got there. So what possible incentive would somebody like Donald Trump, who is not establishment, not a career politician, already a billionaire, not corrupt whatsoever, how can you say he's just a part of this, machine of the two parties?
Not a machine. He's very much an individual. What would you do if you were an individual who sat in a position like Donald Trump? Would you not take advantage and use such position to make yourself more rich and your friends? And I'm saying, despite the fact that he's never been in political office, he is similar in that aim. And a lot of presidents, dare I say all of them, have had that aim. While I'm here in office, let me take this opportunity to make more money for me and my friends and to increase our advantage over others.
Wake the Beast, which candidate do you think would do better for, like, if we had like some sort of alien invasion coming? Like, which one of them do you think would be better like suited to handle it? Or are they like mostly the same for that?
Who would be better suited for an alien invasion?
Yeah, like, or are they kind of the same for that, I think?
Based on what I know about Donald Trump's personality and how he speaks, I think he would have a much more clear voice on it. I don't think that he would hesitate when it comes to launching attacks and things of that nature, but this is all speculation. In reality, it wouldn't be Donald Trump by himself making that decision, nor would it be Joe Biden by himself.
It would be the machine. The machine.
He would have to listen to his constituents.
All right, listen.
Personally, I would trust Howie Hawkins.
We're wasting brain cells and time, and that's just too much. So ultimately, like, the idea, like, it's entertaining, I guess, to try to find out like what he means by like fundamentally the same people. But as it roils, like, this is actually just nonsense. So like, talking about
I want to hear how they'd handle an alien invasion. Actually, I think it's very valuable.
No.
It's important.
That's great entertainment. But like, in reality, like,
I guarantee you, Trump would try to set up trade deals fucking immediately, right? Biden would be over there like talking about like language and culture sharing and stuff. And I mean, honestly, I think Trump would be better. I'm not a big Trump fan. I'm gonna say it. I'd rather have Trump handle an alien invasion.
Yeah. Wait, Dan, when you say alien invasion, what do you mean by that?
Right, are you dog whistling, Dan? Are you Dan whistling right now?
Okay, not necessarily. Okay, not when I say alien, I mean extraterrestrial, not like, an illegal.
Not brown people, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, they could be brown. I mean, we don't know,
that's
right?
True.
I don't
yeah,
want to judge.
Know.
I'm not, So,
You're
but
right.
yeah, I think Trump would, he'd try to get some things going really quickly.
All right,
I think,
let's get back on topic though. So, like the differences between like the current climate and what's going on right now between the different parties, we recognize, like, yeah. So, dealing with what LCTRfan was saying earlier, like I definitely feel like yes, their response towards police reform is going to be obviously crazy different. And the biggest concern to me right now is I think the post office situation, because I do believe like in blue states, like I'm in California, like they're still going pretty ham about the lockdown and things like that. So I think the idea, and then left-leaning people are a lot more concerned about coronavirus. I could see them potentially not wanting to leave the house or not wanting to stand in lines on election day, and I think that could have like a negative impact on the election. So I don't know. I think this is a perfect storm for like a Trump re-election. It's scary to me.
Before we move on to
I think they're two different. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, LCTRfan, about Trump being uncorruptible. When the Saudis bought over 500 rooms at Trump Hotel using a political PAC, and it was found that the Saudi government paid for it in 2019, was that like not corrupt, or what was that? Do they really like Trump Hotel, or what do they have good soap?
No, the fact of the matter is that Donald Trump is the greatest businessman to ever become president of the United States, and if a president has businesses or a person has businesses before they become president,
that was while he was president,
and those businesses continue to exist, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Well, the problem here is that this happened while he was president, after he got elected.
Yeah, like just because a successful businessman becomes president doesn't mean that he has to shut down his businesses.
Yeah, but when foreign companies, specifically Saudi Arabian political PACs, buy over 500 rooms at one of your hotels that has your name plastered on the front of it, do you think they did it? I'm asking you legitimately. Why do you think they did that? Do you think they did that?
I don't even know. I don't even know that they did that. I'll just accept it for the purposes of the argument. Whether it's true or not, I have no idea.
It's because of his Mexican.
Maybe they did it. Maybe they did it to try to influence Trump, but you have no proof that it actually did influence Trump. And in fact, Trump has demonstrated all of his actions taken have been in the best interest of the American people. It's called America First.
When he was it in the best interest of the was it in the best interest of the American people when it comes to the Saudi relationship, when he said, I saved his ass, when in reference to the Saudis and protecting them after the murder of Jamal Khashoggi and vetoing legislation that would have ended our subsidization of the Saudi war in Yemen? Was that protecting America's interests or Saudi interests?
Well, let's be real here. The United States has had a very long and very complicated relationship with Saudi Arabia, and I know it's a favorite for leftists to pick on, but look at Trump just passed one of the most incredible peace deals the Middle East has ever seen.
He didn't pass.
Kind of got to give him credit.
He didn't. Wait, what do you mean he passed a peace deal?
He brokered the most amazing peace deal the Middle East has ever seen. And maybe
that's the most amazing peace deal that the world's ever seen. Okay, number one, Israel and the UAE have never been at war. Bahrain and Israel never been at war. I would probably give that to the people who helped broker the peace deal between Egypt and Israel, who helped return of the Sinai Peninsula to Egypt. How is that the most amazing peace deal the Middle East has ever seen?
Because it's set the table for a bunch more, and we're already starting to see additional peace deals come through.
The
and
Saudis just
basically combining, the Israel and Arab relationship in a big alliance against the Iranian threat is absolutely in America's best interest.
What about another peace deal? What about the return of Jordanian land to Jordan after? With the recognition of the Israeli state. What about that? There's so many other peace deals.
That one is so bad for America's interests are so hurt by the return of Jordanian land.
That wasn't Trump. That was a different president. My point was that wasn't the most amazing peace deal. You're right. That is a great peace deal, but that didn't happen under Trump. To paint this as the greatest peace deal ever, it is good that it happened, in my opinion, even though it's probably not great for the Palestinians. It's good overall for our security interests, but number one, I would say that he kind of stumbled into it, right place, right time, but would disagree on that. I know you're not going to agree with me on that one, but I would also say saying it's the best peace deal ever. Why is everything when Trump does always the best? Why can't it just be that was good? Like when he did a weapons deal with Taiwan, it was good. I don't need to say it's the best deal ever. Why is it so amazing?
His taco bowls at his Trump Tower, they're the best.
Yeah, that's why Saudi PAC bought over 500 rooms because he has such great soap and amazing
I
restaurants.
like how I think at that point is actually really funny. Like when you look at the U.S. Mexico Canada agreement that Trump says like the best trade deal of all time. It's like NAFTA plus. It's literally just like
it's the same
like
exact
takes
thing.
everything that NAFTA did and just like extends it like a little bit.
But then we'll kneecap the actual important geopolitical strategic like arrangement like the TPP that was actually extremely important for help countering Chinese influence in the
I think the big problem- I think-
Trump hasn't done enough to counter Chinese influence. Come on, man.
Wait,
Listen,
well,
the big-
I would
the
certainly
big
say that
problem here-
Joe Biden
Okay.
would do much
Hold
better
on,
on
Chud,
that.
Chud
Most
Logic,
certainly.
please.
Right. Sorry, listen. Here's the big problem, and I referenced
Trump
it at the
is soft
start.
on China.
Hey, listen, it's my turn to speak. Shut the fuck up.
Kinda, yeah.
Okay. Right. Here's the deal. Okay. So when everyone's coming to the table with a frank assessment of like the politicians, I feel most people are here. You know, Harkdan, Destiny. I know you're like into Biden and whatnot, but you're not like simping for him, right? You're not fucking got this weird parasocial relationship with him. I know for a fact that Fnatic and Dylan don't. Pixie doesn't, right? I don't know what the fuck Wake the Beast is talking about. He sounds like he's out of a fucking Deus Ex cutscene. But here's the fucking deal. Okay, LCTRfan has got this weird parasocial relationship with Trump. Okay, and it totally blinds you to any criticism or any reality check in regards to what Trump is doing. All you do is fucking
I
shield
criticize Trump all the time.
Look at that fucking flag
Okay,
behind
wait,
you. Why have you got a flag for a
LCTRfan.
politician in your fucking house? It's absurd to me. They're
Well,
a fucking politician,
I
right? Like,
got
Dylan
signs
has
right
to-
here.
But
Wait,
what do you criticize him on LCTRfan? I'm
But
curious. What do you
here's
like
a great
about
example of this lecture.
The
fan. I'll
biggest
give you-
biggest criticism I have of Trump is on the budget, and I criticize him extensively on that.
Fair enough, but let me give you one of our best moments we ever had when we debated the Soleimani strike. I talked about how I said it would be dumb to say that saying all Kurds are the same would be a dumb thing, right? And you said you agreed that that would be dumb, and I said but that's what Trump said. And then I explained to you how Trump didn't know the difference between the Iraqi Kurds and the Syrian Kurds, between the KRG and the SDF, and you basically then tried to justify it anyway and said, well, a Kurd is a Kurd at the end of the day. And
I said that because it is technically correct. Dude, nobody is nobody's gonna like die on the hill of like distinguishing between the Kurdish relationships, and man, Trump is a bad president because he didn't distinguish between the Kurd, this Kurd versus that Kurd. I mean, come on.
Dude, if you're Turkey, the different types of Kurds are incredibly fucking
really important, yeah.
Right, we're not Turkey though. We're not Turkey.
But wait. I need to say this. The thing is, it's extremely important because he ended up months later making a decision that us backstabbing one of our most important Middle Eastern allies when it comes to the SDF. And so
you really think that's going to matter in the election?
Wait.
Get real, dude.
Wait, I'm talking about you simping for him right now. I'm talking about how you saw that situation, and I explained that, and you even say that it'd be dumb to say that, and then I explained that was actually Trump that said it, and then you 180 and it was no longer dumb once you found out Trump said it.
No.
Oh, okay. I accept that.
You kind of owned you there. Sorry, Dylan.
Yeah, you kind of got right there.
Kind of got on there.
If Pixie wanted to say something, give it room.
No, I mean, I was just gonna say, like, even if it doesn't impact the election, I mean, we're talking about like why Donald Trump is a good or bad president, right? And what we can see is that we can see like a culmination of events, whether they were like good or bad actions, and go from there. So it doesn't matter.
So your big criticism of Trump is he didn't distinguish between the two different types of Kurdish groups. Oh my gosh, what a horrible president! He got the Kurds wrong.
No, he was just using it as an example of you simping for Trump. Not that that's everybody here knows that foreign policy doesn't mean dick all in an election. Unless we're literally at war and people are dying. Nobody really gives a fuck about what's happening in the Middle East for the common voter. But he was just proving that you're a Donald Trump simp. I think that was the point of that.
Okay, so Chud, did you finish your point previously?
No, it's fine. I mean, look, it's quite clear that LCTRfan has got this very weird parasocial relationship with Donald Trump, and that's fine. Okay, look, it is what it is. I just wish LCTRfan would be honest with himself and just admit that. You know, that's all.
Okay.
I don't deny that I'm a Trump supporter.
A Trump simp porter. Be honest.
Yes.
No, but there's
Wait. Here's a great example. I remember when we were, and it really felt like this was the case. Maybe it isn't. Maybe you can finally tell me on this same podcast if you support a holiday on election day or not. Because the last time we were on this show, we kept trying to get it from you, and it almost felt like you were waiting for Trump to declare whether he was for it or against it before you say it. So let me get, and this would be a great way to prove us leftists wrong. Do you support an election day holiday like you wouldn't answer on the last Prime Games podcast?
Hold on, he's checking Trump's Twitter as we speak. Hold on.
It's all you, lecture fan.
On you, man. It's on the line. My heart's racing. Come on. What is it? Wait, lecture fan, really? What is it? Do you support it? Do you not? Do you refuse to corroborate?
Holy shit!
Nice.
That's not real.
Sorry. I'm the moderator.
Okay.
I don't laugh.
Hey,
Who
who provided the
biased?
music?
Come on.
Who provided the music? Was that you, Prime?
No, that was not me. I wish. I'm not that
Dan.
good.
Look at it's Dan, Mr. Soundboard. Come
Dan,
on.
you're the best. You're the best, Dan. You win.
I'm sorry.
You win.
I mean, lecture fan. All jokes. Can you at least tell me why you won't answer it? If I'm being like extremely dishonest here, why you won't answer it?
Yeah. Because I'm not here for you to ask me questions, and I'm not going to lower myself to even entertain such a shit question.
Is
and
it a shit
you know,
question? I mean, like, this is a real issue. Like, should there
yeah,
be
it's
a
just
holiday on election day?
it's disrespectful and degrading, and I'm not going to even lower myself to even entertain
Why
it
is
with
it
a response.
disrespectful? If you were to say yes, they'd be like, "Oh, damn, I was wrong, man." It'd be as simple as that.
Well, here, next time we have a panel, I'll be sure to come up with a bunch of little questions totally unrelated to anything and go ahead and ask
Well,
you
this
a
is
bunch.
related to
Man,
the whether
it's
you're a
a topic of
simp.
conversation.
Man,
Right,
you
in the real
answer my
triggered
questions.
snowflakes.
You're here to answer my questions. No, I'm not. So get lost.
But
no, but the topic of conversation right now, like it kind of evolved into like Trump's electability and whether or not there are people out there
I love my job.
follow his whatever, like and whether or not you're one of those people. So he's like asking you specifically a question just about like how much of a fan you are of Trump and whether or not.
I don't think
like,
so. It sounds like you're just trying to trap him on some totally irrelevant thing. This has nothing to do with anything we've talked about today.
True.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah, it's
God.
true. It's true. It's true.
Okay.
Right, you know, I'm using. I have the de-snake emote. I'm using my snaky
And I
tactics.
have actually answered that question on my own stream and talked about it extensively. I'm just not gonna give you the pleasure of getting an answer.
Pleasure.
with
No,
a
my pleasure.
disrespectful, degrading question.
I'll put it this way:
Totally
the
out of
pleasure
context
I'm
like
getting
that.
right now is out of you not answering it. It makes you look, even though this is your own doing, ridiculous, because it makes it look like you were unable to answer it because you actually need Trump's approval for this before you can get it, and you can completely blow me out of the water right now by saying,
Well, you
are in
obviously
support.
don't. You obviously don't know me or ever watch my stream. Then.
Well, you see
Well,
me in
wait,
your chat.
but
I'm
you're
a
here
sub.
now.
I'm a
Why
lecture
does
fan.
it-
I've subbed to your channel before. Yes, I have watched your stream. Come on.
Well, wait. Even if he hadn't seen your channel, you don't expect every streamer to watch all of your content. But if he's here right now asking you a question that's really, really simple, like
Well,
do you
if he's
support
gonna
something really
if he's
simple-
gonna make accusations about me like that, then he better damn well have some basis
Well-
to do it. Otherwise, it's
Well, you're
pretty,
right. Hey, listen,
pretty
I don't-
disrespectful and rude.
I can totally agree with you. So like, I don't know you, and I don't, you know me. We're friends. Like we've had conversations. So like, I don't know like all of his other stuff, and he probably is just completely just screwing you over here. But
Yeah, I'm a
I just want to
bastard.
know, just out of my own curiosity, and I'm obviously not being disrespectful at all. I'm just asking, like, would you support that?
I think it's totally disrespectful. You're asking a follow up to another
Yes, it
disrespectful
is.
question. Now you're adding on to
The funny thing about this, Fatigue, is this was a line of questioning from someone else last podcast, and so I actually did what you did right now, and I said I have no interest in trying to like wreck you or anything. I'm now genuinely curious because we've talked about it for so long. What your position is, and he also didn't answer, and so I thought
You should
maybe
go watch
I mean,
his
the
stream.
thing is, if you guys actually watch that last debate where this topic came up and you can't figure it out for yourself what my belief is on that, then you are an idiot.
All right, you're right.
You know
I
what?
guess It's our fault for not doing 6 hours of homework. That's fine.
Sorry.
It's
So
like
moving
Jordan
on.
Peterson argument. Go and watch fucking 100 hours of lectures before you can fucking.
Oh my god.
Haven't read enough theory, clearly. So this has been great. I'm gonna let you do a final statement on this. Before we do that, everyone, follow me if you haven't followed me before. We're gonna have an all women's panel tomorrow. It'll be great. You know, issues appointing to women, run by women here, hosted on this channel. It'll be great. And then we have the all black panel on Thursdays. We have a econ panel, leftist populist econ panel on Saturdays, and come back next week. We'll have a more illustrious guest like Bastiat. He comes on here. We have Lecture Fan. We have Dylan. We have who else has been here? Lots of people have been here. don't be mad at me because I can't remember your name, but lots of great people have been here. So yeah, follow me if any of that interests you. All right, I'm gonna give you all the a chance to end this out. Oh yes, also if you guys could follow my socials, so like !social and chat. I got a Twitter and I got a Discord. Join the Discord. If you are a sub, you can submit topics in the Discord. So if you want for things for us to discuss. Furthermore, even after this is done, the discourse does not end. We're going to begin a walk-on panel right after this. Okay, so don't leave. We'll have a walk-on panel right after this. Anyone here is welcome to join us. I mean, like, you know, my panel's here, but if not, that's okay. But yeah, so a walk-on panel with my audience will be coming right after this. All right, so please don't leave. All right, and follow me on Twitter, follow me on Discord, whatever the hell. All right, we'll go with Pixie first.
Hi, I'm Pixie. I like talking politics. I had a very fun time here tonight. LCTRfan, I hope you didn't feel piled on. I know how that can feel sometimes, but you held strong, so that was good. Thank you everyone for coming on here and entertaining me. And thank you, Prime, for hosting. I hope you guys have a good night. Follow me on Pixie or Pixie Love. Bye.
Hi. Please stay until it's over, please. Yeah, don't leave, please. That'd be great. Thank you. All right. The homie Dylan Burns. Yeah, your final statement on this.
So I think that these crises hurt Trump. But now I am most interested in finally hearing about his stances on a election day holiday, because obviously his supporters are craving the sweet release of an answer. I would really like it, and I do want to say to Wake the Beast, even if I disagree with you on basically 80 to 90% of issues, I always love hearing from you. Always love you having you on here. I hope I don't have the heart of a cat like actual Jake does. I really do. And LCTRfan, even if I disagree with you on literally 100% of the issues, I always love bickering with you. It's extremely fun. And the rest of you, that goes the same way. Harkdan, stop being a coward and come on the Hippy Dippy podcast.
On Friday, 8 p.m., which is amazing, fantastic podcast, right? From a guy who actually knows what the fuck he's doing. So if you like this, then you'll love that. So yeah, please give Dylan Burns a follow. Dylan, shout yourself out.
You can find me at Dylan Burns TV on basically on Twitch. That's DYLANBURNS TV. You can also find that on YouTube, and on Twitter you'll find me at Dylan Burns 1776, which is DYLANBURNS 1776 at Twitter. I'd appreciate follows on all of it and any support you want to give me. Love you all, and you all have a blessed week.
Yeah, awesome. Next, LCTRfan.
All right, so this whole panel was exactly how these panels typically are, with a bunch of out-of-touch leftists. It's me making perfectly rational, reasoned statements backed up by good policy that is widely accepted throughout the American public, and everybody else acting like it's so out of control and they're so surprised, and so then they start attacking me personally, name calling me, trying to act like I'm here to answer their questions, or like Chud, just straight up name calling, and just really immature, kind of rude, disrespectful stuff. I'm actually a professional.
Would you say he was ejaculating?
I'm a professional, and I'm respectful, and I'm kind to people. I don't treat other people the way that you leftists on these types of panels do. I actually maintain my own self-respect and my own dignity, and you guys ought to try it sometime.
Yes, we will try to do better. But LCTRfan, could you also shout yourself out, buddy?
Yes. I'm the only rational political streamer on this whole freaking platform. Come check it out, LCTRfan. Thanks a lot, Prime.
I endorse that statement.
LCTRfan, I love you like so much, dude. I love you so. You're the best.
I know you do, Prime. I know you do.
This is a special time for me. So thank you for that. Okay, Harkdan, who's a new friend, and I'm happy that you were kind enough to join us here today. Thank you for spending some of your valuable time, especially since you said you don't stream as much as you used to previously. Thank you for.
You say something short, man? I didn't hear. If you want to go ahead, speak up a little bit. No,
I'll be taller than you when you're 6 feet under in a few years, Dan. Mr.
We'll
75-year-old,
see about that. You're
27
fucking 2 years younger
comorbidities,
than me.
infected with
I know you
COVID-19,
can't count very well.
cat
It's fine.
rabies running around your house. Sorry, go ahead.
I am at. You can follow me on Twitter. I don't stream very much. Come back every once in a while. I'm on Twitter at twitter.com/Harkdan Live. That's my Twitter handle, and you should follow it. Good stuff goes on there. We make fun of poor people, tenants, leftists, Republicans, really the whole gamut of stuff. Pretty much anyone who's unfortunate in a situation that they didn't put there themselves, that's prime pickings for me. So, yeah, stop on sometime and we'll have a conversation. Probably not, though. But, yeah, there you go. All right.
Probably not. Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. Wake the Beast. Wake the Beast. You have made a splash. Every time you show up on my panels, or any panel, honestly, right? It doesn't have to do with me. You are a man who makes an impression, a strong impression on people. And I appreciate you for that. I do, honestly, sincerely. Yes, please, Wake the Beast, give us a final word on the topic if you have one. Shout yourself out, and just thank you in general for being you.
It's my pleasure, sir, and thank you for the invitation. How's this for Splash? We will not have peace on this planet until poets, philosophers, and warriors are ruling as kings again. So what does that mean? It means that for most of us who have that aristocratic soul, our existence is one of a holding pattern to simply ride this tiger until it changes hands again. But I just want to remind everyone that regardless of who you think you are, when you are an old man or woman in your bed, clutching your chest, as you take your final breaths, your heart is going to ask you a question. And that question is, who are you, right? And you're going to have to say something more than just what you disagree with. I hope you can say that who you are is the degree to which your friends, your family, and your society at large can depend upon you to stand for the ideas that make life and civilization even possible. Among them, the protection of property rights, your life, and your liberty. And I just want to say real quick to Destiny, I heard about what happened to you. And I know it must be tough building something for years, streaming for 12 hours a day sometimes, and then one chance, something slips out and all of that goes. But I'll say this to you, friend. I don't know anything about you, but a man who's willing to stand up for what he believes has a standing invitation to stand beside me at any time. So if you'll pound it, I will extend to you the fist of brotherhood, sir.
I fucking hate you.
I feel like I want to read you my outro after hearing that. Can I do that? Listen, never make the same mistake twice. Okay, there you go. There's that one. What other quotes do I got? God damn it! All right, never mind. Just fuck it.
Oh my God! Once again, Wake the Beast. You are a unique individual. There is no one like you. And I do appreciate. I said it before when I first met you. I need more of you in my life. So please do me the favor of coming to my other panels, please. Thank you so much.
I am yours, friend, when you want me here. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, Fanatic. You got to do, you got to step your game up after that. Come on. Come on.
Listen, I don't even know if it's possible. That's actually ridiculous. He's great at what he does. So I guess at the end of the day, I feel like these conversations and these podcasts, they kind of get bogged down into very much ideological perspectives and things like that. And even though we can all disagree on all of that stuff, at the end of the day, politics is going to be significantly less important than our communities, our families, who we are as people, and the people that we interact with on a regular basis. So it is incredibly important to be invested in the politics and making sure that we're voting and doing whatever we feel that's necessary to try to be the change in the world, or try to at least support a system that'll make changes for the better. But at the end of the day, your personal interactions and who you are as a person is always going to be more important than all of those things. Local elections matter, but I promise you, your education, the way you carry yourself, that those decisions will have a bigger impact on you and your progeny than any political change that could ever happen. I'm always going to support and advocate for positive changes through the system, but none of that's going to overshadow the necessity of our own decision making and our own value systems. That's what's going to be the ultimate most important thing in the world. I love streaming. I love doing music. I love doing it all. I have a new album. It's actually coming out in, I believe, 8 days now. It's 8 days from now. I'm gonna post a hyper follow that you guys can go ahead and check out. I stream as Mr. Fanatic on Twitch and Mr. Fanatic on Twitter. Destiny, I'm sorry that like we kind of disagreed on this topic. Overall, like I'm any person, you can go through all of my content. I watch a lot of your content, probably well over 50 hours. I've been a big fan of yours for a while. We disagree on this take, but ultimately, like it's not like a personal vendetta to want to see you burn or anything like that. I genuinely do like your content and stuff. That's it.
Okay. Chudlogic?
Okay, so obviously Biden discourse has taken up quite a lot of time, the presidential election. I think many of us are quite sick and tired of it, to be honest, but here we are again speaking about it. It is what it is. Have I learned anything new from the panel in regards to the presidential election? Well, there is actually one thing that I'm going to take away from this, and one thing alone, and that is this. If Donald Trump ever sets up an OnlyFans, we all know the LCTRfan will be the first customer. Now, if you like what I've seen, if you like what you've seen from me today, check out my stuff. Search Chudlogic on all good social media platforms. I'll put a link to my Twitch channel in chat. You can find all of my other links from there. So come and check me out. Come and join in. I built a community of memers and creamers. We like to have fun. We like to mock idiots. It's all good fun. Come over, have a look.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for spreading that load all over our faces, in our minds. Once again, that's why we love each other. Logic. And finally, Steven, if you could sign us out here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. You'll be finding me streaming soon live at youtube.com/Destiny, I guess. Mr. Fanatic, I think I watched some of your music stuff a long time ago. I think the first thing I ever saw of you, I don't know if you remember this, but like fucking 8 years ago or some shit. I think there was an LSF clip or something of you. I think it was before LSF existed, of you improving to the Skype ringtone. Do you remember this?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it was a long ass time ago. Yeah, you haven't said enough to make me hate yet, so don't worry, buddy.